We'll just press it up there. We don't have it up here.
That's no,
Because
because
he's got a
this is a workshop where he has his PowerPoint. Just for the trustees anyway.
So they can hear it though?
Yeah, if no one's on.
Okay. No one wants to listen.
They do. But just having a really hard time getting there.
I think we're good.
All right, should I go ahead, Mayor?
Yes.
All right.
Go ahead.
All right, thank you, Mayor. Thank you, trustees. Thank you, staff, for having me out. I see some familiar faces and some new faces. So we have some new trustees, is that right?
Yeah.
Who's the newer trustees? Yeah. All right, congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, so my name is Sam Light, and I'm the Deputy Executive Director and General Counsel for CIRSA, which is an acronym for the Colorado Intergovernmental Risk Sharing Agency. So we're your insurance provider, the town's insurance provider for property and casualty and workers' compensation as well, right? So, the bread and butter work we do is we get your insurance policy in place, we handle the claims, all that kind of stuff. But a little bit more about CIRSA, we are not a commercial insurance company like Geico or State Farm. We are a public entity self-insurance pool, right? And we are organized under Colorado law. We're a public entity ourselves. Our only insurance, our only book of insurance business is insuring Colorado cities and towns and affiliated entities, things like housing authorities and so on and so forth. So that's very important because it creates a different relationship with our members. We're member-owned, member-controlled, right? And the other dynamic to that is we have to share the attribute around risk management with our members, and we're all in this together, right? Just as you're doing the right things locally here to protect the interests and assets of the town as a municipal corporation, we aggregate that up. And from CIRSA's perspective, there's really only two interests, the interest of the CIRSA member as a member and the interest of the pool as a pool, right? But the way it influences risk management is in the borrow quote from my claims manager, the best claim is the claim that didn't happen, right? Even when you have insurance, it still has impacts on you. You've got a deductible and you've got all that difficulty in dealing with claims. Claims can be stressful, can take a lot of time, they can have reputational harm, right? And they can be hard to recover from, particularly if it's a liability that, impairs the faith and trust in government at the governing body level, right? So at CIRSA, we provide all sorts of resources for our members at every level of the organization to provide proactive training on risk management. So to give you a sense of what that looks like for your operations staff, for people who do public works stuff, we have training for them. We do training for your staff on supervisor training or respectful workplace environment. But the reason I'm here today is that we do elected and appointed officials training for our members. And I do that along with our executive director and our associate general counsel. We try to get out about once every 2 years and visit our members. And that's a great part of my job. I'm like, yeah, I'll take this job because I get to come out and visit our members, right, in your turf and talk about risk management issues, that are important to you all. So that's what we're here to talk about. Do you agree with this notion? Hi.
I can't hear you real well. Can you speak up a little louder, please?
Yeah, I'll try my outdoor voice. So if anything, if you're ever having trouble, just wave your arm again and I'll take it back up and down.
Thank you.
All right, sounds good. Do you agree with this notion that it's true that elected and appointed officials by their own actions and sometimes do things that gets the organization or the board in a bit of a pickle, right? Or creates liability risk, right? So I hope you share CIRSA's view on this, that good risk management starts at the very top of an organization, right? Because you are the leaders of the organization, right? You have certain roles around risk management. Of course, part of the heavy lift that you do as the governing body, the board of directors of the corporation, is help adequately resource the entity for like a safe workplace environment, right? But even the way you conduct yourselves, it's very important, right? Because people see that, right? And so that embracing a good risk management culture starts at the top of the organization. So that's what we're going to talk about. I put some handouts at your places that I'll mention. If you want to learn more about CIRSA, who we are, what we do, the CIRSA at a glance handout has got more information about who we are. You can learn more about us at www.cirsa.org. And then I'm going to mention some other handouts as we go through the material. Feel free to ask questions. I know we have limited time. You have a meeting that starts at 6, right?
Yep.
And then another meeting after that?
Yep.
Yeah, so you got a busy night ahead of you. So I'm going to move quick. But if you have questions, feel free to interrupt me. Happy to take questions with 2 disclaimers. Though I am an attorney, this is not an attorney-client discussion, right? Is it the Frob's law firm? Is that it?
Yes.
Right, okay. So, but feel free to ask me a question, but you know how they go. I have a good radar for what I call a live one. Sometimes somebody asks me a question, they'll say something like, Sam, I've got a question. What if another member of the Board of Trustees does this? And everyone's eyes open wide. They go, oh, this is going to be exciting, right now. To me, my radar is telling me that's your burning issue of the day. And if it's a legal question, that's for Dan, right? Is it Dan?
Yes.
Yeah.
Dan and his team to help you out. Same thing if your question is something that's in the wheelhouse of your town manager. Because I don't know all your project priorities and everything you got going on in the administrative world from a non-legal perspective. So I'll probably beg off those questions as well. But those 2 comments lead to one of my preeminent risk management suggestions for all, particularly the new folks as you're getting oriented to the job. Your direct reports, your town manager, right, and your town attorney, right, are here to help support the success of the organization, to help you as a board of trustees, as the directors of the corporation, get things done, look good while doing it, while at the same time manage your risk exposure. So if you're, you have a question, hey, it's never inappropriate for you as a board member to make that tactful call to the attorney or the manager and say, why do we do it this way? Why do we do it that way? Make sure you give them a little grace. If they say, hey, that's a great question, but if you're asking it, I'll bet that might be a question that other board members have. So why don't we hold that question until the next work session, or maybe I can send you all an email, because they live by the rule, particularly the managers, that they want to keep all of you on the same level playing field as far as information goes, right? My role as a manager is to bring all of my directors up to the same level of information as concurrently as possible, right? Maybe there's some nuances to that if the mayor has like an agenda setting role or has been delegated some more day-to-day activity on behalf of the board, but recognize your direct reports are there to help and support you, right? So, and also remember this, the job of an elected official, right? But you get paid to be on the board?
100.
Yeah,
They
right.
paid $100.
Yeah, so this is a part-time volunteer
Right.
citizen, legislator, and policy-making job. You were never asked and should never be expected, right, that your job is in all things to all people. That translates to risk. For example, the role of elected official is you weren't elected to be a super manager. You weren't elected to be a super HR director or a super public works director. You were elected to be the legislative and governing body of the organization, right? So embrace that part of the role, and we'll talk more about what that means from a risk perspective, okay? So let's dive into my presentation materials. We're going to talk about the role of being a public official. We'll talk about liability risks. Well, let's focus on the good news. We're going to talk about the immunity protections that you have from liability as trustees. Then we'll talk about some of the limitations on that. We'll talk about your organizational structure briefly, your job description, and then talk a little bit about meetings. And if we're staying within the time budget, on meetings in particular, everywhere I visit, I'd love to hear about how your interactions are going with the public during your meeting. There are some risk issues, knock on wood. Hopefully they never bubble up to having a full-blown claim over some citizen interaction, but I always like to hear how those dynamics are going. There are some risk issues that I'm happy to talk about. Okay. New folks in particular, but folks that have been on the board a while, I'll ask the same question. When you become an elected official, do you agree with this notion that your role and your relationship to the community changes pretty dramatically, right? You're no longer just a citizen, right? At Lake City, you're now a public official, and I'm here to tell you from a certain perspective, that's a 24/7 job, right? Yeah, I mean, have your personal life, enjoy it, right? But you know how it is in the eyes of your constituents, in the eyes of the community, in the eyes of the people you take your counsel from. They're going to perceive you to be a public official, an elected official, a member of the town board, anytime, in any setting. Doesn't matter what we think of that. We fair or unfair, doesn't matter, right? Because as they should, right? As elected officials, our words, our deeds, our conduct matters, creates perceptions, leaves an impression, right? In a difficult situation, it can even raise potential liability concerns, right? You know how that presents itself. Right? You got, this is high season, you said. You know, a lot of great town-sponsored events going on down at the park, right? And you know how it is. You're there with your family or friends thinking you're there on personal time, but somebody spots you and says, oh, I got a burning question there's one of my trustees. I'm going to go talk to her about the town business, right? And at that point, was the hat ever off, right? So particularly at the elected leadership level, one of the parts of the job description, really a kind of the core piece of the job description, is to be a good representative and good ambassador of the organization as a corporate entity, right? And that asks us to sometimes rise above, right, whatever kind of dispute we might have going on amongst ourselves, right? A lot of times citizens, they don't know all the ins and outs. They might show up for a meeting once in a while, right? But they're not particularly concerned in the little battles that we might be having amongst ourselves, right? They want to know that the government and its leadership is there, right, to move the community forward, get services delivered, provide predictable, fair, even-handed government on their behalf. And that's the kind of thing that helps build faith and trust in government. So make sure we're committed to those principles. You do face unique risks, right, as government officials. The other thing I want to point out, when I said you're a citizen, part-time volunteer group, you agree with this dynamic? When we were elected, right, yes, we were elected individually, but what's the job that we take on when we get elected? It's to be but one member of a multi-member board, right? And yes, absolutely, on those issues that come in front of the Board of Trustees, deliberate with many voices. But when the board decides, what does it speak with? Does it speak with 7 voices or one voice? Right? So part of the role then is to respect that idea that we're all co-equals on the board, right? That when we're having deliberations, no matter how much we disagree, we agree that our deliberations are a safe space where we're respectfully listening to our colleagues. And no matter how much we disagree, right, we say, I understand what you're saying. I hear you. I respectfully disagree. That once we make a decision, even if it's a 4-3 vote, hey, that's our decision, right? We support the decision that was reached by the board. You don't have to be the main cheerleader if you didn't like the decision, but there can be risk issues to that we'll talk about in a minute. So I think it does ask us to embrace the idea that it's a we job in that respect. So, and what you do is high visibility, unlike private corporations, right? You got to do your business in a public meeting and we're all on display, right? So when do you agree you're going to make some tough decisions once in a while? What are some of the tough issues you got going on right now? I know short-term rentals was a big deal. Are you in a solid place there? Do you have short-term rental regulations?
Yeah, we do.
What else? Off-highway vehicles?
Yeah.
What else?
It's done.
It's a done deal, right? Yes, but those are tough. And the job, right, it doesn't allow us to say, we're just going to ignore that issue and it's going to go away, right? But we're going to make tough decisions. So the goal is not to avoid the tough decisions, right? But it's to make them in a way that builds faith and trust in government, even if people are dissatisfied with what you ultimately decide. And also to make those decisions through a process that protects the organization and the board and its members, right? It's kind of the old adage that if you have to make a tough decision, right, we just need to know that we're making that decision, right, in a fair manner through a fair and defensible process. And that when people walk away from a tough decision, yeah, they might say to themselves, hey, I disagree with what the board decided, but you know what? I feel like it was a good process. I feel like I was heard. I feel like I was respected. I know the board. Now I recognize that the board had a tough job, right? But they did as best they could, and they made a decision, and that's what was asked of me, right? So that's a great place to be. All right, let's talk more about liability protections in and of themselves. The new folks, I'll start this by posing it this way. For the new folks, please tell me this wasn't your first question to the town attorney, but it's a fair question. Question being, can I get sued and be held individually and personally liable for something that I do or don't do as a trustee? And the answer is?
Yes.
Sure, it's possible, right? It's possible. It's rare, but it's possible. But the good news is we have great protections for you as elected officials. That's the right thing. That's the right way it should be, right? Get people to step up to the calling of public service and serving their communities. You wouldn't get people to do that if at every turn, right, they were subjected to individual personal liability, even when they were acting in good faith, right? So the good news is there's a couple different layers of immunity protection that you have listed on this slide. I'm actually going to start at the, actually, I reversed my bullets, so I got them in the right order. When I was first working on this, I was like, oh, I got them in the wrong order. I'm going to start with the state law protection. They recognize that under state law, there's protection under what's called the Colorado Governmental Immunity Act. Okay, now that's basically a statute that protects you from tort liability. Okay, and we'll talk more about what that means in a second. Oh, and this is great. Elected officials, appointed officials, and public employees. You have liability under both state and federal law. Oh, but gee, thanks, right? But you have protections at both the state and federal level. The federal immunity is called federal qualified immunity. We'll talk about that in a second. There's a couple other immunities that are helpful. There's one called legislative immunity that protects you from being sued and having individual personal liability for legislative acts of the governing body. But how does the board act when it's carrying out a legislative act, like an ordinance? We get together, the seven of us, we debate, and we vote. We vote, right? And so it's very difficult, as long as we're not going off the rails, for the claimant to say, hey, I don't like, do you call them off-highway vehicles?
Yes,
OHVs?
yes.
I don't like your OHV ordinance that you adopted, trustees, and in particular, I don't like the position that you took, so I'm going to sue you and just you for the board's adoption of that ordinance. It just sounds ridiculous to begin with, right? But among other immunities, we can assert, hey, he was acting as a legislator among a group of legislators, and as long, right, as he didn't do anything malicious, right, there's no way you can hold him individually liable for participating in a legislative debate and taking legislative action, right? So that's a good thing. Then we all see the flip side of that, where it leads us. There's safety in numbers and making sure that we're doing our work collectively, right? In fact, that's the board's job, right? The bulk of your work is getting together in this room as a group of seven and discussing and taking action on items that come in front of the board collectively, right? And then we have another immunity. You sit sometimes as the licensing board
Occasionally.
for liquor licensing, maybe.
No, for new ones.
Yeah, maybe for some land use matters on occasion, like a variance.
No, the Board of
Yeah, the Board of Adjustment.
does that.
All right, we'll give them that risk.
Yeah.
All right. How about any other land use matters?
We just haven't had many that came up.
Yeah, if you ever have any, like a zoning request.
Yeah.
Yeah, this other immunity, just to mention what it is, that protects you. Sometimes the job, if you're like considering a zoning request, you're actually not legislating at that point, you're acting as judges. And as long as you're making those kinds of decisions on specific applications from property owners, as long as you're doing it through a fair and defensible process and applying the right standards, then you're going to enjoy quasi-judicial immunity where you can't be personally liable either. That's but that's the good news. The bad news is that your immunities are not absolute, right? And let me break down what I mean by that, starting with that state immunity. And what I'm talking about here, right, is whether someone can sue you under state law and hold you personally liable for money damages for bodily injury, property damage, or personal injury. Personal injury may be something like, hey, you know, you all were having a discussion as a board and you said something that I think it was about me, and I'm going to sue you for defamation. And I'm going to sue you and hold you individually and personally liable or something like that, right? So the way this immunity works is it basically says the town, and by extension your insurance provider, CIRSA, has an obligation to defend you and pay judgments against you for acts or omissions as a trustee. We're protected, right? But there's some limits to that. There's always a catch, right? And the limits to that are those protections are there, right? Only so long as you're acting within the scope of your employment and not acting in a willful and wanton manner, okay? So scope of employment sounds a little odd to you as the trustees, because you may be thinking, you know, I'm not an employee, right? Like Lex or Tina, I'm an elected official, right? So that concept must not apply to me. It does. It's just the phrase that's used in the statute. Scope of employment essentially means job description or authority. So you need to understand what your authority, job description is as a trustee and stay within that job description. Right? So I give you some scope of employment examples. Within your organizational structure, does any one trustee have the power to negotiate and enter into a contract on behalf of the town?
No.
That's outside your scope of employment, outside your job duties. Does any one trustee have the power to discipline or terminate an employee?
No.
Right. Building permits, how do you handle building permits again?
We have an IGA with the county building official.
Okay.
He pretty much approves them.
Yeah, and that was how you wanted to resource the organization, so there was a decision for the board in that structure. You decided whether you wanted to enter into a contract with the county to provide your building services, right? So within your scope of employment was together with your manager, negotiate, and then at the board level, approve this intergovernmental agreement, because intergovernmental agreements have to be approved by the governing body to set up that framework. But so that was your scope of employment. But within your organizational structure, within whose scope of employment is it to determine whether or not somebody gets their building project red tagged?
Building official.
Building official. So within whose scope of employment ain't it?
Ours.
Ours. Or anybody else. It's not Lex's job either, right? He shouldn't be directing the building official. Hey, I don't like this person or their project. And the building official says, yeah, I get all that, but he's doing what's required by the building code. But we say, no, I disagree. I think he's violating the code, and I direct you to issue a stop work order. Bad idea. That's outside the scope of your employment. So that's how that concept works. Okay. The other nice thing is right in the middle of the slide. The other protection under the State Immunity Act is that municipal corporations in Colorado and elected and appointed officials and employees can only be sued in areas where there's a waiver. So the town, for example, can only be sued where there's a waiver. Most of the waivers arise from your kind of basic core services and operations, which aren't the area that you get involved in. Like there's a waiver of a dangerous condition of a public building, where someone, if they trip and fall in town hall and they think that you created a tripping hazard, right, they can sue the town. But who's responsible for the maintenance activities? Probably staff.
Right.
Right, but who's responsible for resourcing us in from a budget perspective to make sure we have adequate systems to carry out necessary maintenance? Yeah, you all. So that's the first layer of protection. Now, with regard to public officials and employees, however, there is one other big exception, and it basically says there is no immunity, and you can proceed with a claim against an individual in an attempt to hold them individually and personally liable if they were engaging in willful and wanton conduct. That sounds like an ominous phrase, right? But willful and wanton conduct is simply conduct that's intentionally undertaken, designed to injure someone's legal rights, and taken with reckless disregard for what their rights are. Okay? My even simpler phrase is I just call it bad stuff. Bad stuff, right? Don't use your governmental authority to do bad things to people for the wrong reasons, and you'll be just fine, right? But it really would be bad stuff. It would be like, in my building permit example, my claims, we don't get a lot of these claims at CIRSA, but we handle the liability claims, and every year we get at least a small handful of claims where the claimant is attempting to assert a theory of liability under willful and wanton conduct, right? And basically saying that that person should be held individually and personally liable. It's almost always this kind of fact pattern. It's almost always an allegation that an individual elected or appointed official or employee acting individually, right, throws on some purported cloak of governmental authority, right, and tries to go around and do bad things to wrong people, do bad things to people for the wrong reasons when they had no governmental authority in the first place. So to use my building permit example, it would be throwing on that cloak of governmental authority, and going, conscripting the building official into the cause and going on a campaign to make sure my business competitor, right, doesn't get their building permit or gets their project shut down. Does that sound like bad stuff?
Yeah.
What about intentionally and publicly publishing false facts about someone with an intent to harm them?
Yeah.
That would be the intentional tort of defamation, right? Compare that to like, oh, we just make, in a moment of weakness and passion during a tough debate, we just tell a citizen, hey, I've heard enough of you, fight down. That's not intentional defamation, right? They may get their back up and be mad at you, but you're going to have immunity if that citizen tried to sue you for defamation for just telling them to pipe down. But if you, publicly disclose private facts about someone, right? There's a right of privacy in Colorado as well that creates a tort. So we got to be careful of those kinds of things. So Wilp on one really would be bad stuff. So, yes, sir.
I had a question that I've been thinking about, I wondered about, I heard. But the opposite of that, it's my understanding that when you're elected as a elected official, that people can say whatever they want about you. You can't sue somebody for libel, that elected officials are open for stuff. Is that true?
That's mostly true. Yeah, the standards for a public official, public figure like you are, right? To hold a private citizen liable for libel, slander, or defamation, the standards are higher, right? And so, yeah, sometimes we'll have an elected official that say, hey, that citizen's defaming me. I'll tell you how it relates to CIRSA. Sometimes they'll call CIRSA and say, hey, this person's defaming me. Can CIRSA cover that and go after this person? No, we don't do that. We cover the claims made against you, right? But if we personally feel like we're being defamed, I always say, well, it stinks. This job, unfortunately, sometimes you're going to face incivility, right? If you really wonder whether you have a defamation claim, you go talk to one of these attorneys that's an expert in that area. I think a lot of times what they'll say is, yeah, it stinks. I feel really bad, and we do feel bad. Nobody should be subject to personal attacks and that kind of criticism. But the attorneys will often say, it's not going to be actionable. It's not going to be actionable.
Is there a blatant threshold for that or no?
Yeah, but it's the higher standard. You got to prove actual malice for public figures, which is a higher standard of proof to prevail in that kind of situation, right? So let's just stay with that digression for a second. Are you an active social media community?
The community as a whole, yeah.
A little bit. Okay. Do you agree with this notion that elected and appointed officials and sometimes employees can be on the receiving end of less than courteous commentary
Yes.
That's
on
why,
social media?
that's why I don't comment.
Oh, I'm talking on the receiving end
Yeah,
too,
yeah,
right?
oh, yeah, but I mean,
Yeah, yeah. So in that world, right, or even in a public meeting, 99.9% of that stuff is protected by free speech. Right? That's just the way our society works, right? If it's an actual, what we call in the legal world, a true threat, which is an imminent bodily injury or harm to you or a loved one, or it's sexualized obscenity, there are some things that can be done, but leave that to law enforcement, right? But otherwise, these rude, snarky, attacking comments, yeah, they stink. But really, there's not much we can do about it. It's just part of the rough and tumble that goes with being a public official. Now, if it's happening in real time during public comment, the legal side of it is a little bit different than like the tips and tools and tactics that the mayor might use to try and ask people to be more courteous and civil, right? Somebody, how it is. You have public comment.
We do, but almost no one ever shows up.
Yeah, but if you show up during public comment and Citizen Sam, I'll be the bad guy. Citizen Sam, hey, Citizen Sam, good to see you. This is your time to address the board. And 30 seconds into it, I'm just launching into a personal attack on you. If your time limit is 3 minutes, what do I get? I get another 2.5 minutes. Unless I'm inciting a riot, threatening somebody with imminent bodily harm, right, engaging in disorderly conduct or sexualized obscenity, I basically have a First Amendment right to make a personal attack, right? It stinks. Maybe the mayor at the end of it could say, hey, well, I guarantee there's nothing you could say in the moment that's going to change that person's mind. So don't jump in and attack them, right? But maybe at the end of all public comments, the mayor could say, hey, just a reminder, let's all be courteous, civil, professional. Let's respect each other's opinions, right? Our meetings are not a place for personal attacks. We just ask that you not engage in personal attacks, but we're not going to do anything that's going to get us in the legal trouble. For example, if someone's making a personal attack on you, we can't say, if the deputy sheriff happens to be there that night, we can't say, hey, he's engaging in a personal attack. that's contrary to our rules of decorum, that deputy escort him from the room. That would be, right? That would be basically taking away that person's First Amendment rights, right, to protected speech by having the police lay hands on him and kick him out of the meeting. And we've defended many different variations of that theme. So I don't know how we got through in this world. Sounds like you're in a good place, but just to know in this world, sometimes people are going to show up at your public meetings and try to bait you into violating their First Amendment rights. Don't take the bait. You know, Alexa's going to help you spot that. And we're just going to say, let's take a deep breath. We'll just move on, right? Okay. Let's get back on track with federal liability. This actually does tie into that. There is liability under federal law. Federal civil rights liability is an individual liability that can be asserted against public officials. The good news is you have coverage through CIRSA for alleged civil rights violations, right? We provide coverage that protects you from liability for alleged wrongful acts, which can include an alleged violation of the Constitution, right? And so you'll have that coverage, you'll have that protection, right? As long as we're not engaging in malicious conduct or something like that, or criminal conduct, right? But recognize the parameters of that federal protection are basically such that we're protected and the organization is protected as long as we're not violating people's federal rights of which we knew or should have known, okay? Which I always thought was the fascinating kind of phrase from your perspective. And you go, wait a second, how do I know? I got somebody standing up that says, if you pass that off-highway vehicle ordinance, you are violating my constitutional rights and I'm going to sue the town and each of its board members. At that point, your radar should be going off, right? And in that situation, it's like we weren't asked as citizen part-time volunteer legislators to know all the ins and outs of civil rights liability, but we need to have a good enough radar to know when we need resources. So that's when you're going to turn to Dan and say, Dan, do we have an issue here? Maybe you've already gotten information from Dan and Lex before you've gotten to that point of actually adopting the ordinance on what your options are, what the legal boundaries are. So my only thing with regard to federal civil rights liabilities, if it feels like you might be treading on thin ice, then just slow it down and take the time you need and get the information you need from your attorney and manager, help understand the options, the risks, and the various paths forward, right? So that you can assess the risk and determine collectively what's the path that we want to take that's consistent, right, with taking an appropriate level of risk. Okay? All right. So that's that. On insurance aspects, I just want to point out that some of these concepts, they follow your insurance coverage through CIRSA. Great news is we have strong protection for you. If you, one of those claims where they, let's say I'm going to keep borrowing the off-highway ordinance. Somebody doesn't like it, they think it's unconstitutional, they bring a claim against the town as an entity and try to say that ordinance was unconstitutional. But they also include each and every one of you as defendants, right? In that situation, CIRSA is going to provide a defense for you all, right? And if the only claim was that it's unconstitutional because you treat, different classes of OHV owners differently, right, depending on the size of the vehicle or something like that. Hey, look, we're going to win that case as long as you had a legitimate, reasonable explanation for why you treated different types of vehicle owners differently, right? And as long as we weren't doing anything intentional or malicious, you're going to be protected. That coverage through CIRSA is called wrongful acts coverage. And it's true that you can kind of mistakenly, even with the best of intentions, end up in a situation where you lose a constitutional challenge, right? But the good faith defense of qualified immunity protects you against that, right? So we have strong protections for you. But your insurance follows similar concepts for scope of employment and willful and wanton conduct. That is, the insurance has exclusions. It says that the insurance will not pay for a judgment of civil liability if a court determines that the civil liability results from willful and wanton conduct, or from a criminal act, or from malicious activity, right? So we know bad stuff. We're going to stay far away from it. Just recognize those are the outer boundaries. The other misconception sometimes is elected or appointed officials or even staff members think that their elected official hat is even bigger than it really is, and they think they have protection through the organization, the liabilities that really flow from their own personal affairs. No, your CIRSA coverage applies to you in your capacity as an elected official, and it is not coverage for things that you're doing with regard to your other scope of things you have going on in your life, right? Okay. Any questions about that stuff? All right. That all sounded a bit ominous, didn't it? So let me end with a little bit of silver lining on this, right? And that is, on the other hand, don't let the fear of liability drive decision making. At the end of the day, if we know as a board that we're making the right decision for the right reasons through a fair and defensible process, that's what these immunities and insurance coverage are there for, to protect you, right? But definitely have the fortitude to stay with that path, right? Sometimes even like you're making a tough decision and everybody in the room wants you to make some other decision, but clearly their reasons for wanting you to make some other decision aren't defensible. Yeah, just remember, they're not the ones that are going to defend you. Right? You got to protect yourselves, right, and make sure you're doing the right things for the right reason. Is that in the building?
No, that's next door.
Oh, okay. All right. I mentioned before we started, I said, I know we're dog friendly, and I said, next time I'm going to bring my dog
Yeah.
with me. Yes, sir.
So one of the civil rights is rights under the ADA, is that correct?
Yeah. ADA. Yeah, we have an obligation under the ADA to provide reasonable accommodation for persons with disabilities. That looks different in different contexts. There's actually, for municipal organizations, we have Title I of the ADA that requires that we provide accommodation with respect to employment matters, and then Title II with respect to services. Okay, so I just hypothecated an example. This probably doesn't fit you, but I've got to remember, for example, that one of the things that Park and Rec Department does, the Park and Rec, they actually run a municipal dock, and they have a town lake, and they provide boats and canoes and so on and so forth. What if a person with a disability wants to enjoy that service? Do we have to make accommodation to be able to allow them to use that service? Probably, right? Right, if we have a hiking trail, right? Is there a discussion around, is that accessible for folks with disabilities? If this particular trail is not, do we have alternatives for them that are consistent with our responsibilities under the ADA, right? In the employment world, we'll talk in a minute that most of that is your manager's concern, because he's responsible for employment matters on your behalf, right? Okay, this slide just organizes your liability risk exposures. And sometimes people ask me, all right, I get all this. Where are the areas, what are the types of actual legal claims that we could find ourselves in that flow from the action or inaction of the public officials or the board of trustees, right? Okay, so the first two are what I call the big dollar, difficult to settle emotional claims. Civil rights claims under federal law, the remedy can include money damages and attorney's fees. Hopefully you never face one of these, right? But it can include everything from the First Amendment claim, where we all know this, but one of the rights that we obviously know of and know we can't violate is, as I said earlier, we can't kick a person out of a meeting, an open public meeting, because we don't like the viewpoint that they're expressing, right? That would be a First Amendment violation. That would translate to a civil rights claim. Yes, sir.
Is there a point now, somebody's in the meeting and they're drunk and they're being unruly? I've been told that the mayor has a right to either end the meeting. There gets to a point there when it's.
Yeah, you're in a tough spot a little bit, because I want to make sure we're reducing your exposure as best we can. Right. If you don't have law enforcement in the room, then you're basically, you don't have a good option for a law enforcement officer to decide whether there's disorderly conduct or disruption of a public assembly going on. Right. But I'll tell you this too, peace officers, because of the liability risks they face, particularly some of the more recent liability risks that stays alive, they're reluctant, right, to actually issue a citation or put hands on unless it's an egregious case of actual disturbing conduct, right? So you hit on it, Mayor. I think your better, lower risk tool, right, is to take a recess, right? maybe there's somebody, staff member, a trusted colleague of the person who's acting out a little bit during the recess, you just say, not asking you to leave, but I'm asking you, right? I'm not telling you to leave, but I'm asking you to calm down. And I'm asking you that if you feel like you're not in a good place and you're, not able to, just go along with our expectations, we'd ask you to leave. Okay, are you throwing me out? No, we're not throwing you out, but if you are going to stay, we would ask you, right? So take a recess and see if that, I mean, if you have law enforcement available, if people that are willing to do this. I mentioned law enforcement because among the other things that they do so well, what are they specifically trained to do? De-escalate, right? And they know where their liability risk lies. So they're going to try and de-escalate that situation without creating a liability situation. But Mayor, your best tactic, I think, is to take a recess. And, hey, you're trying to run the meeting and people shouting or yelling or someone's doing what Sam does out there. Hey, let's just take a recess. When we come back, I'd ask for everyone to be civil, courteous, professional, but we're going to take a 10-minute break. In a lot of situations, within those 10 minutes, the person voluntarily decides they're going to leave and problem solve, right?
Oh, we're blessed. Luckily, we don't have those issues.
Yeah, lucky.
Just, you know.
Yeah, the next two on the slide, I just want to mention, we're not going to do much training on it, but recognize that willful and wanton conduct, right, that outside the lane intentional action to harm someone, willful and wanton conduct and breach of ethics, those are the two areas where there really is an exposure for individual personal liability for which the entity has no obligation to protect you and insurance does not apply, right? So, but the good news is we're going to stay far away from willful and wanton as long as we understand that we're expected to act in good faith, right? And we're expected not to misuse our governmental authority for the wrong reasons. And breach of ethics can be a little more complicated. We'll talk about it in a minute, but just to make sure you have a good understanding of what the ethics rules are, and that'll put you in a good place. The next three bullets there, those are the types of state law claims that arise from collective action of the board or on the open meeting side, if we violate the open meetings law. New folks, and have been trained on the idea that whenever 3 or more members want to discuss public business, there has to be an open meeting, right? So we know no serial meetings, no one-on-one meetings, that kind of thing. We know how to go into executive sessions and all that stuff. So just make sure that we understand that there is an open meetings law risk, requires us to make sure we follow all that. The fancy letters there, that's just a state law claim to challenge when you're making a decision on a liquor license or a land use application. I won't talk about that. The good news about that and the next one is they usually don't have a remedy of money damages, right? But the remedy is your action can be reversed, right? So it's more the kind of, well, we made a mistake, we got it wrong, and the court overturned it. Part of the actual practical harm is kind of the reputational risk. Hey, the court slapped us on the wrist and said we didn't follow our own rules, or we were arbitrary and capricious, or we tried to do something we didn't have authority to do, right? That kind of thing. And then the last two are sort of corporate types of risk that you could face, breach of contract. You ever have someone stand up and say, if you do that, you're taking my property?
Not yet.
Not yet. Well, good for you. So we're going to skip that one. That's a little nuanced. We'll skip that. All right. Last piece is sometimes people ask me, all right, I can let Sam, give me some scenarios from your actual claims world where elected officials actually can expose themselves to potential individual uncovered liability. These are a couple of examples. I won't mention all. Violate the code of ethics, conduct outside your scope of employment, willful and wanton conduct, sexual harassment or sexual abuse. If you're alleged to have done that, your CIRSA coverage might actually provide a defense for that for the individual, but we may not pay the judgment if the liability is actually found to be, right? That the person actually engaged in sexual harassment or sexual abuse, right? And then actions with malicious intent. All right. Let's turn the page to kind of best practices suggestions to preserve immunity, right? That's to make sure, again, as I said, it's a collective job. Immunity is best protected when we understand that we act collectively by doing our work in public meetings. Be careful. Yes, we have a 7-member board, but the analogy does not hold when we think Well, we got a 7-member board. That means I own 1/7 of the power and I'm going to go out and use it, right? You read all your ordinances, there's no ordinance that says the power of the board of trustees may be exercised by one trustee, right? To be careful of that, stay within our proper role and make sure we're using proper process. A couple more concepts on acting collectively, right? One of the red flags is this: if you're thinking of acting individually, right, you should be asking yourself, do I have authority to do this? You probably don't, right? So then you don't want to act. I know that can be frustrating sometimes, but we have to be eyes up on this temptation. And if we're frustrated with the board has decided or the board is doing as a board, we don't want to say, hey, I don't like that board. You do what you want to do. I'm going to do something else. That's a red flag, right? So let's see. Need to catch up with where I'm at. Oh, what are some of your individual roles? Is my job not being included? Do I, yeah,
Is that going individually?
yeah, does my job as a trustee, do I have any individual
We sit on boards.
parts of my job description?
We sit on boards.
Yeah, be a participant, a contributor. That's part of the job. That is the job description, right? But in terms of actually acting, yeah, so the crux piece is I was elected to be a contributor, a participant, a voice with higher standing than anybody else in the community except 6 other people, right? So embrace that part of the role. I guess there's also the role of being an ambassador of the organization, a champion of the good thing the community is doing. You're also uniquely situated at the elected official position to be kind of eyes and ears of the community. And you then get back together in this room and help determine the needs and wants of the community, right? But you hit it right on the head that those roles of being a voice, it's a contributing voice to the voice of the board, right? Yeah. Okay. Let's see. I think we've covered most of this piece, right? If you look at the state statute, it says that the trustees are the legislative and governing body. So you want to embrace your job is the high level stuff, right? For example, what's the most important financial document to a board of trustees?
Budget.
Budget, not this week's payroll. Why? Because we've delegated to the manager and the supervisors the handling of the payroll, right? Your other jobs in that regard, important documents to you are the master plan, if you have one, ordinances, general ordinances, long-term planning for the community, utility planning, those kinds of things, right? Intergovernmental relationships. So in your form of government, right, it's truly the case that you're responsible, your scope of employment, your role is to serve as the governing body, right? And there's a distinction between that and administration, right? Think of it as you're the governing body, the corporate board of directors that sets the vision, determines the resource allocation, enables and champions the organization. Then your manager and his team has been delegated the authority to get the work done consistent with the goals and priorities as determined by the board, right? And it says right there, right, that your manager is responsible for handling the day-to-day operations. Okay. There's some examples, I think, on this slide and maybe the next one that show the contrast. It's not that you're silos, right? The administrative arm of the organization and the legislative side, we're working mutually together to move the community forward, but there are distinctions of tasks that are within our scope of employment, right? Who adopts the general ordinance? You all. Who's responsible for enforcing the ordinance usually? Yeah. And by the way, you got a great new ordinance on the enforcement activities, right? But you see that's got all sorts of allocations of responsibility in it. Who decides whether we buy or sell property? Who's responsible for taking care of the property once we buy it? With the budget that you've allocated, right? Yeah, that kind of thing, right? Resourcing the organization, right? Let's see, what else? Adopting plans, leadership and resourcing for challenges, emergency planning. You have emergency plans? Is that your role?
In Hinsdale County, we adopted Hinsdale County, we participated in the Hinsdale County gas mitigation plan. And we have our own roles.
Right. Do elected officials sometimes do volunteer work?
Yeah.
Yeah. do we recognize or appreciate the line of distinction between being a volunteer and an elected official? Yeah. How would we describe that difference?
Well, liability, kind of.
Yeah. Well, volunteers have a scope of employment too, right? If Flex is beating the bushes for citizens who want to come help install some new playground equipment, we're going to sit them down and say, thanks for volunteering, great showing by the community. Oh, by the way, for this volunteer activity, here's what we'd like you to do. Your job as a volunteer is to help move mulch from that truck to the playground. It's not to go out and buy lunch on behalf and say, or represent something to some vendor, right? It's not to start giving direction to his staff, right? It's just to help with the volunteer task.
We're operating a big.
Yeah, but in small towns in particular, right? It's absolutely true that elected officials sometimes do some volunteer stuff, but we have to recognize, right? It's not a light switch that we can flip on and off. If we're doing a volunteer duty, we have to accept the fact, right? We're now a volunteer, probably under the direction, right, of someone on staff who's coordinating the volunteer efforts, right? We got to be humble enough to take off that elected official hat and say, I'm just one of the core volunteers. How can I help? What would you like me to do? I'm going to stay within that role, right? The good news is the same immunity protections apply to volunteers too, right? Yeah. Except volunteers aren't covered by work.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, there's a couple more examples there on that probably encapsulate the concepts we're talking about, just to move things along. I mentioned on the overall slide, the summary slide, that another important piece to stay in a good place to develop is legal risk is to make sure we're following established processes. For the new folks, do you like process? Well, I'll ask everybody. Do you like them? Yeah, we get a bad rap once in a while, right? Why does it take so long? It's such a process. Recognize that in local government in particular, process is a product in and of itself that you provide as an organization. Process is there to help ensure that decisions are made on a predictable basis, that people come in front of us with a request, that they're treated the same as anybody else with the same request that comes before them, right? And processes under state and federal law often are required to be written down, right, and put in place to help guide our decision making, right? So it's important to recognize that. I've got some best practices listed on the left-hand side of the slide that shows you how that helps your risk exposure, right? That if we have clear written policies, whether it's on personnel issues or how we handle some sort of application, I don't know, do requests to put things in the right of way, do they have to come in front of you?
I can approve them, but sometimes it's more like it should be a lease and not like an encroachment permit.
Yeah.
So that would come before them to discuss.
Yeah, and then we talk about, well, what are the standards? Or the board turns to you and says, Lex, okay, I get it, what they're asking. Do we have any precedent or standards? What are the rules for this request, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so having good, maybe you don't have any, and maybe in a small town, it's okay for a while, right? But just recognize that it doesn't have to be your top work priority, right? It's just a matter of focusing on where are the issues where we do get repeated requests, where it might help us as a board and help the organization as a whole to make sure we have some guidelines or standards. They don't have to be complex. They don't have to take forever, but just having some simple guidelines that helps protect against risk also gives you something to point to in the face of the citizen who says, and they're wrongfully claiming, oh, this was arbitrary, or you have no rules. They may be wrong because even though you did it in a kind of informal way, you got to the same point as you did for all the other requests. But sometimes if they're recurring issues, find the ones that need some attention. Sounds like the OHVs was one where got to the point where we need to put some guidelines in place. We even adopted an ordinance around it, right? Yeah. Okay, so there's some behaviors around that issue that I hope is helpful. Let's talk about your meetings real quick, and then I'm going to get you on to your 6 o'clock. Good meeting practices start before the meeting, right? Make sure you're reading your packet, coming prepared, getting your questions lined up, right? Again, going back to an earlier thing, recognize if you've got a question after reading the packet and you contact your manager, give the manager some grace if he says, great question, hey, I'll be prepared to answer that to the full board when we get to the meeting, right? Give your packet the time and attention it deserves. The open meetings law, right, it says that it says that the town board can only take action, right? As a board, collective. And you can only take action at a duly noticed and agendized public meeting, right? Where you've given full and timely notice. Timely notice means you post an agenda 24 hours in advance, and full notice means your agenda includes specific agenda information where possible, giving the public an indication of these are the topics that we're going to talk about and or take action on, right? The other thing it does for you as the board members is it reminds us, hey, that's our collective understanding of how we're going to spend our energy tonight, right? There is a liability issue around adding agenda items. I would encourage you not to add agenda items night up. Now, you only meet once a month,
Twice.
twice a month. Okay, well, that's good because then you get, right? It is true that we can have emergencies, but if we have emergencies, we can have an emergency meeting,
Yeah.
right? I very rarely in my 35 years of doing it has there been a situation where it was really an emergency that we had to indulge the idea of saying we got to the meeting, we said, Mayor, this is an absolute emergency. We need to add this item and take substantive action tonight. The way yeah.
So like if I forget to put
Yeah.
an action item to schedule a public hearing for something,
Mhm.
and I'm like, well, can we, I would ask that we add that to the agenda.
That's okay because you're not making a substantive decision. You're
Okay,
actually
right.
queuing up an item for future, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But sometimes the problem is if we had a blockbuster issue and geez, we don't want to play games with the agenda. We don't want to, imagine this scenario, right? We're concerned that once this is on the agenda and people are going to come out in droves and they're going to be mad and angry at us, right? Imagine they're going to be angry anyway when it's on the agenda. Imagine how angry they're going to be when they find out that it was added to the agenda last minute night of, and you discussed it and took some action, right? They're going to be doubly mad. They're going to be mad about the substance of the decision and the process by which you got there, right? So I think adding something night of, if it's administrative or if it's queuing up something for a later date, I think that's okay. But I would consider that risk in terms of what I call the empty chair principle. If you look out in the room and there's a chair that's empty that would have been filled by someone had they known you were going to talk about that issue that night, then you're in a better place by putting it on a future agenda, right? So we're a small town and we like to be informal, but make sure we can be informal, but we don't want to be informal to a fault. It's still a meeting of the corporate governing body, right? You're meeting to discuss the business of the town as an entity. So what other those tips and tools look like? Just let me ask some examples. Do you require speakers be recognized
Yes.
before they speak? Is that true for both the board and the citizens?
Yes.
Right? Do we commit that we don't interrupt? If it's public, do we ask that they use a lectern? I don't know if you have that or not. Probably not.
You're in the hot seat.
I'm in the hot seat. Yeah.
That's where they sit.
Yeah, so you have these little flows and things that help remind folks in the audience, don't speak over each other. Please be recognized by the chair. Decide whether we want to use titles, how do we address each other. And then good habits around deliberations too. If your citizens see that you have a good process, that builds faith and trust in government. As an example, you're got an item for which you need some board discussion is our process that each one of us speaks once before anyone speaks twice. Doesn't have to be, but that kind of thing. That can help, right? Make sure that your meetings don't have any surprise moments, right? Commit to each other as trustees with yourselves and with staff that meetings don't have surprise moments. They ought not to have gotcha moments as well, right? Same thing, if you feel like there's some problem with something that you need to bring the staff's attention, it's perfectly fine, right? To avoid the gotcha moment by giving Alexa a heads up. Hey, I read the packet, I saw this, I think there's some problem with it. I want to give you a heads up because I'd like you to be prepared to address it. And that's fair to everybody. It gives staff a better chance to prepare to give you an answer, right? If you got a gotcha moment, well, it could be a source of embarrassment, it could be a source of confusion, and we may not advance the ball any further anyway because the gotcha moment doesn't give anybody any chance to really digest. Meetings ought not to have staff bashing, right? Even if we have a concern, right? Our meetings, a public setting is not a place for staff bashing. We don't do much in this slide deck on this issue, but do you all recognize, how many employees do you have at this point?
So, including me, 8 full-time and 1 part-time.
How many employees are directly supervised by the Board of Trustees?
One.
One, the manager
Yeah.
and the attorney,
Right.
right? Right, so.
He manages us a lot,
Yeah,
but it's a good working relation.
yeah. So I would tell you from the organization that handles a lot of employment claims and disputes, I would tell you from the perspective of the citizen, layperson, part-time legislator and policymaker, what a great place to be. We recommend, encourage our members, our governing bodies to delegate responsibility, right, for personnel and employment matters to the town manager. If you have one, and you're lucky enough that you have the resources to set up this organizational structure where you're the corporate board of directors, just like a private corporation that's got a board of directors and a CEO, you have an organizational structure that is board of trustees, town manager, board, CEO. Right? And your manager is your point of contact, accountability, credibility for the relationship to the administrative side of the organization, right? So it does translate into risk, right? And so appreciate and embrace the idea that you have handed off all that employment practices liability risk to the manager and the supervisors, right, elsewhere in the chain of command. And they love that risk, don't you?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. No, they don't, but it's part of the job. They've given you that responsibility, right? So, and I'm not naive around this. I know sometimes maybe a citizen had some interaction with a town staff member and they didn't like that interaction. They're mad about it. What's their natural inclination? I'm going to call my trustee and say, you need to do something about that employee. And what's our response?
No.
I would encourage you that your first response is, have you talked to our town manager? Because our town manager is responsible, right, for the oversight and supervision of our town.
What if it's about him though?
Right? Yeah, I get that, right? But then just remember,
Yeah.
if it is, then you got to embrace your responsibility to be the supervisor of your direct reports. Just a couple of tips on that. Remember, it's tough enough to have one boss, right? A board of trustees is not a group of 7 bosses. It's one boss, right? So work with if it does involve your manager, then work with your town attorney to figure out what the process is for raising a concern with respect to your direct reports and vice versa. I know it's a little bit different with contracted attorneys, but it's the same kind of situation, right? If you have a direct report, whether it's the manager or the attorney, you probably want to develop some hopefully respectful, mutually agreed upon processes for evaluating performance, giving feedback, having check-ins, that kind of thing, right? So embrace that part of the job. But if a line employee below the level of the manager comes to you and says, can I talk to you about my boss? Do we have a ready response for that? Hey, let's look, even if we have a concern, we're going to play along with a little bit of as if. We're going to say, hey, we love and appreciate our employees, that I, as a trustee and we as a board, don't get involved in personnel matters at that level, right? I would encourage you to talk to your supervisor or HR to help you with your problem. Now, we recognize that CRSA, there can be employment matters that have, how would you say it, a little more hair and warts on them, right? And so in the appropriate circumstance, CRSA can provide some additional assistance, particularly for small municipalities where maybe it might be a tangled knot for which it's clear some outside resources are needed, but we can help with that. We have a liability hotline on that issue, and we've had some situations now and then where we provide some support on that, right? But it's not that you don't have a role in employment matters or personnel matters, but for you as the board of trustees, the big picture stuff, right? You review and approve the personnel policies.
Yes.
You determine the overall pay plan and budget. You determine the overall positions, right? But you're not the line supervisors, right? So same thing with administrative matters. If whether they're your own concern or a concern of a citizen, I would encourage you to work with your manager to develop good systems for bringing forward and putting attention on administrative matters that have been assigned to staff, whatever that looks like, right? If it's a citizen complaint form, or you hear something from a citizen, you pass it on to the manager, and then your process, he does whatever. he figures it out, gets back with the citizen, and reports back to you. Or he does a manager's report during the meeting that says, these are the administrative issues that you brought to, whatever it looks like. But just a good mutually supportive system in that regard. All right, on meetings, just get back to one or two more things. Let's talk about rules of order just a little bit. Do you have an adopted set of rules that you
Yes.
use? Robert?
Well, it's technically Roberts, yes, and old BOT policy.
Okay. All right. So my major takeaway, by the way, we don't really have third-party liability claims around rules of procedure, except in full-blown litigation on property rights matters or licensing matters, where somebody thinks that your violation of a rule of order or rule of procedure ended up causing them harm, right? Sometimes we'll see that. But rules of order are primarily to help you do what? Get your work done. So I would encourage you to use your rules of procedure, your rules of order to help you effectively facilitate getting the work done and not debilitate getting work done. Now, having said that, I'm just the insurance guy. And I recognize that above my pay grade, parliamentarism does have its own virtues and vices, and people will use it in different ways, but not so much in local government. We're just trying to work collectively to get work done. I would encourage you, if you're using Robert's Rules of Order, to think about a couple of things. Robert's Rules of Order, last time I checked, is some 780 pages long. It's got more than 80 or 90 different motions, right? Do we have that sort of complexity?
No.
Right? The other thing with Roberts is written for legislative bodies that have a beginning and an ending. But there's no such thing as the 101st session of the Board of Trustees of the town of Lake City. It's an ongoing entity. The board itself is an ongoing institution. We all get on and off that train during our tenure. But so much of Roberts is written around the concept of there's a legislative session, right, where the legislative bodies, parliamentary procedures relate to the commencement and expiration of the legislative session, right? But whatever it is, obviously for the presiding officer, become well versed in the key rules. The presiding officer's role is not to drive the substantive discussion necessarily, but to be a champion of order and equity, right? Making sure that the rules are applied evenly, right? Yes, and on the flip side of that, the members, make sure we recognize and honor the presiding officer's role and authority with regard to rules of order. Use that. It absolutely is true. Oh, Mayor, going back to your other suggestion of taking a recess, you have a gavel.
Yeah, it's in the drawer right now.
It sounds a little quaint, but I think the gavel in the appropriate time still is an effective tool and a recognized tool. Even sometimes these situations that we have with the citizens who are acting out against the board, even the gavel gets everyone to pause for a moment, right?
There are agendas when I get the gavel out before the meeting.
But we use it sparingly and effectively. Recognize there are other types of rules out there. An alternative to Robert's rules is Bob's rules. We had conversations about that.
Yeah, that's the one I was passing out to everyone because I thought it was the condensed version of Roberts.
No.
And I
That was
did,
something that
I didn't
touched on
understand.
before all of this, but I've always tried to follow Robert's Rules of Order.
Yeah.
And that, Diane and I talked about it, but it contradicts itself because it's from different legislative sessions. But in our bylaws, it says we follow Robert's Rules of Order, but then in the employee, the trustee training packet,
Yeah.
has Bob's Rules of
Yeah.
Order. And even those contradict each other. And I even spoke with our attorney some, and some attorneys like Bob's Rules of Order and some don't.
Yeah, yeah.
And so that's what we have, a little gray area in there, and that's something, the town has come a long way getting rules and regs in place,
Good.
but that's something we need to iron out. still.
Yeah, it's going to take some time, you know. The other thing we see is the three main options are some of our members have Roberts, some of them adopt Bob's. Some of them say, look, we know that 8 or 10 or 12 procedural issues that crop up frequently, and we're just going to develop our own set of rules and procedures in order. We'll probably borrow a little bit from Roberts, borrow a little bit from Bob's, but that's a heavy lift because you got to work through that, and you want to have buy-in. So, you know, you got to decide how much time and energy you want to spend on that. With respect to Bob's, don't kill the messenger. Sorry, there appears to be some internal inconsistency because you're going to see a name in Bob's that you might recognize, and that's mine. I was one of the people who reviewed Bob's rules of order. What we tried to do with Bob's is recognize that there are some areas where Robert's rules doesn't even reflect state law, right? Like certain issues around the voting rule for an executive session. They're different under state law. You can't just follow Robert's rules of order. And there are some places where Robert's rules doesn't provide any guidance at all, like quasi judicial. And then Robert's, the third thing that's going on in Bob's rules is in some areas you might have discretion, but Bob's went ahead and wrote the presumptive rule that would apply unless you decide locally to change it. That's why I say if you get into this and you want to look for something different than Robert's, just find the time to sort of talk through what works best for us. I do think it's not a plug, but I do think Robert's is overly complex and Bob's is more useful to Colorado organizations, but I do have members that like Roberts and they use it. Yep. Just to give an example.
A key to that is we decide what we're gonna follow. Right? We all know.
Yeah, and then we can put that in the policy too.
Yeah, that would be you're not home rule. You don't have a charter provision that says thou must use Roberts.
Okay.
And there's no state statute that says thou must use Roberts.
Right.
So it's your choice as a board, right? Okay, I'm over my time. So unless you want to take them on, I had a couple of quiz questions just for fun to round them out about rules of order, right? So unless you want to take them on, I think I'll just pass over them. Okay? Yeah.
One of the things I've struggled with and I'm getting better at it is using titles.
Yeah.
To inform them.
Yeah.
But it's a very small town. Like I've known Henry for 35, plus
Yeah.
years. And that's Henry. And so I have to say, no, that's Trustee Woods.
Yeah.
I've been working hard on that. So we're getting more formal. But
All right. My last slide is some concluding thoughts for you all that kind of encapsulate most of the concepts that we're talking about, right, with regard to that organizational structure in terms of recognizing and honoring that role distinction and avoiding any scope of employment or role discipline issues. Make sure you remember and embrace the policy administrative distinction, right? State your job description, your scope of employment in terms of doing the things that the governing body does, right? Make sure you have focused and on-point discussions, right? Even in the legislative realm, when you're just adopting an ordinance, I think it's important to make sure we're discussing the merits and sticking to a discussion of the merits alone, right? Sometimes it might feel right in the moment to make a comment, but if it might end up being a cringy comment or completely irrelevant, right? Or even on a legislative matter, discuss evidences some bias or lack of fairness to people. We just, we put that one in the parking lot and say, look, let's commit to just discuss issues on their merits alone. Make sure we know what our rules are. We play by the rules. We apply them even-handedly. We didn't talk about open meetings or open records, but make sure we follow those transparency rules, right? Recognize that our board authority is exercised collectively. Oh, for the new members, if I can, I just have one more moment there. I didn't mention open records, but do you all have town-issued email addresses?
Yes.
All right, we all recognize that the correspondence you send and receive wearing your hat as a trustee, that's primarily a public record, right? Can be read by anyone who makes a records request
Yes.
to the town clerk. Recognize it's absolutely commonplace, right, that people will ask for public records, including the correspondence of elected officials, including elected officials' email and text messages, if it relates to your duties or functions as a trustee, right? So be circumspect in that regard, because somebody may be reading that email or text message that you never had in mind when you wrote it. Okay? So don't say in an email or text message as a public official anything you wouldn't want to read in the paper, right? Or say in a public meeting, or in my world, have read back to you in a legal proceeding. Right? So email is a great tool. One of the handouts talks about that issue. So I hope that's a good helpful resource to you. We didn't talk about ethics, but I brought an ethics handout for you all. Primary thing, particularly the new folks, that everybody make sure, we refresh our commitment to understanding what's a conflict of interest, when we need to recuse ourselves, and what we have to do around conflicts of interest. That's one of the handout there, and then there's a handout about the quasi judicial process. We didn't talk at all about quasi judicial. It's a limited role that you have. If you're going to the CML conference and you'd like to learn about quasi judicial decision making, I'm presenting a session on Wednesday morning on that topic. So, all right, I'm sorry I ran over time. Last handout is this. As I said, I always love to come visit. And if you'd like to visit, we'd love to see you again. CERS has a lot of good regional events that we put on. If you're coming to CML, we have a member appreciation lunch on Tuesday of the conference. You can register for that on our website if you'd like to attend. That's just a couple of minutes away from the CML venue. That's a free lunch, member appreciation lunch for you all. And then we also have regional member appreciation lunches as well. Probably ones closest to you are going to be Salida and Montrose in August and later in July. If you'd like to come to one of those, we'd love to see you there. Or anywhere in the state. If you're going somewhere on vacation and you go, I don't know, that's how you want to spend your vacation. But if you're out there, oh my gosh, the person's got a free lunch. I'm going to come on by. We'd love to see our elected and appointed. So with that, you got a copy of our handbook as well. So I'll open it up for questions, but I know I'm over time here.
I just want to pick your brain.
Yeah.
So we're doing a 150th anniversary on August 1st, and someone proposed doing or potentially having like a petting zoo. They have their own animals on a ranch, and possibly maybe using private property here near downtown
Yeah.
to have like a little petting zoo. And then also they wanted to know if they could do pony rides. And we're organizing the event technically,
Yeah.
but it is people bringing their own personally owned animals to pet and or ride.
Yeah.
And is there any liability there for the town? Like, because that's like kind of the first thing everybody thought, like someone falls off a pony and hurts them. We're the deepest pockets. So are they going to sue us? Would we be liable?
Yeah, that's
Did they get E. coli? Good question.
Yeah.
right. It's a great question because we need to know a little bit more about the actual relationship with the people that are providing the animals and the extent of your sponsorship role. From a risk adverse perspective, let's look at it this way: is the main thing that you're putting in is your name and your dollars?
Well, the main thing is that we're making hot dogs and burgers and
Somewhere else.
at Town Park, not where the petting zoo would be.
All right.
They would be just I would assume they would be riding the pony around our streets.
Technically, they could host it privately.
Technically, they could host it, but you could permit that or allow it.
Yeah. But so where's the point of attachment is they might need your permission to use the public streets to do it?
But
They don't really need.
They don't need that either. They don't
Yeah.
need that. So like, I guess there would be more liability if we allowed the petting zoo to take place in our town park.
Potentially, there's more risk of premises liability, but that premises liability relates to a dangerous physical condition of the park itself, not simply the participation in an activity. Now, having said that, Parks and Rec people know this all too well. If we're going to provide a service or an amenity or a program or a class or a ride, we're still going to take the steps to make sure we're reducing our risk, such as, right, we're going to have proper staff overseeing it. We're going to make sure nothing dangerous is happening in the moment. I'm watching Yellowstone right now, streaming. So we're going to make sure we remind the people providing the animals that don't bring us that horse that Jimmy had to ride on episode 3 right, of Yellowstone, bring us the most docile animals you have, right? I don't know enough about, I'm getting way beyond my bailiwick here, but is there a way to certify that the animals are free from disease?
There's ways, but
It's a lot, yeah. So in good faith, we could just ask the person, hey, can you make sure, So, if we were wanting to, add layers of that, it could get more complex. If you're providing the town park and it's a commercial operation that says, can we have, 50 by 50 square feet and do a commercial petting zoo for which we're charging a fee, I would think you'd step up your expectations, including, hey, we want to see that you have your own insurance. We want you to name us as an additional insured. We want to make sure your insurance coverage extends to liability from your operations, right? And we want you to commit in the agreement with us minimum staffing and certain other operational things that ensure this is happening on a safe thing. If your right-of-way laws right now allow me to ride my horse down the street,
they do.
you've already got a premises liability exposure. But the good news is, right, I fall off the horse walking down the street. What's the premises liability? Under the Government Immunity Act, there is a waiver of immunity and someone can sue for a dangerous condition
Like a pop hole.
of a street. But a horse in the right of way itself is not a dangerous condition. Under that law, the dangerous condition has to be a dangerous physical condition of the street itself. A pothole, a Jersey barrier in some crazy place that no one would ever expect to be there. Sadly, I've had that claim.
Yeah.
A motorcyclist that put a Jersey barrier up in a place and it was not well lit, and sadly enough, you know what happened. Right?
You can't get like attractive nuisance as a town if somebody has like a horse, correct?
The plaintiff's attorneys can use it to approve their negligence claim more readily. Yes, the idea of attractive nuisance there, but it doesn't make you automatically liable. There's no such thing as strict liability against public entities.
Perfect.
Okay, you still have to prove actual negligence. You have to show that the cause of the liability arose from some act or omission of the town or its employees, right, in the maintenance or operation of the particular facility or street or building.
Okay.
Okay? Yeah, so sounds good. So your petting zoo, again, or any of those kinds of things, if it's on town property, you probably just have a set of standard, what's reasonable type of questions. And then we either keep an eye on ourselves, or better yet, we tell the person who is supplying, who's the expert.
Yeah.
It's great to have experts in our community who can help provide those amenities. So just look to them and document. I would prefer that you document, hey, it's your responsibility to maintain.
No, we're giving you permission, like
Yeah.
it's a little agreement almost.
Yeah. Was that helpful?
One of the last thing, I don't know, hold you long, but we're going through a deal, these town boardwalks. I'm still in the fog about it, but the owner's property lines ends at the front of their buildings. And then we have boardwalks that are out there, but somewhere states that the owners of those businesses are responsible for that boardwalk out in front of their business. But then we've gotten, letters, and some people say, man, that boardwalk really needs fixing. See the gray area?
Very
So,
complex,
staff-
very complex.
Yeah, and
So
then,
we have
Who's
staff
thought?
go look at it
yeah,
and get some people to work on it, but it's just, I don't want to waste your time now, but it's something I'd like Lex to discuss with you and figure out to where we have a full understanding.
yeah, I mean, we're gonna rip out part of it. It's super dangerous and there is no Masonic Lodge here anymore.
Yeah, to the extent we can help it be on the liability exposure side, we're happy to work with Lex and Dan, talk through those issues. It is very complex. It is, a kind of an area that's rife with misunderstandings, and how and to what extent do we have regulatory authority?
Yeah,
Right? At the building edge, if it's your right of way, you might still face the premises liability risk. There is authority under law. Colorado law has upheld the concept that a municipal entity can make an adjoining property owner responsible for certain maintenance, right? Even perhaps certain repairs with respect to improvements in the right of way adjacent to their property, but it's pretty complex. Yeah. Yeah, we mostly worry about the slip and fall.
Right.
Right. So the good news is there is a waiver for a dangerous condition of a sidewalk. That's only for municipalities, not counties. Don't kill the messenger. Isn't that odd, right? But it's only for municipalities. The dangerous condition waiver for sidewalks, again, is it has to be a dangerous condition of the sidewalk that arises out of a negligent act or omission in maintaining the sidewalk. So just some differential that results from wear and tear and sinking and shifting probably isn't going to be enough. And a dangerous condition has to exceed the bounds of reason. Okay? But it can. There are circumstances where the tripping hazard is such that it's way beyond anything that's reasonable. The other thing that goes on in our real claims world is judges in Colorado. This is Colorado. This is not Scottsdale, Arizona, with respect to sidewalks. And they kind of get the idea that in Colorado, an unreasonably dangerous condition is different than what might be an unreasonably dangerous condition in Scottsdale, because everything's perfectly flat, right? And there's no subsidence or slopes or anything going on, right? We got plenty of it going on. So Thanks, Mayor. Thank you, trustees.
Thank you.
Great to see you all. Yeah.
See you next week.
All right, we'll see some of you next week. Yeah,
Yeah, I do appreciate you coming out.
thank you.
Is the dog still barking? Can we open a window?
I just sound like.
Please.
It is the
Yeah.
dogs. The dogs.
Give that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You guys want to go right into our workshop or would you
Yes.
like a quick
Thank
break?
you. No, let's go into our.
He had to use the restroom. I didn't.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, take a quick break, I guess, right? Dave?
Yeah.
Okay.
Now,
Good evening, everyone. It is 6:34 PM on Wednesday, June the 17th, 2026. I'd like to begin our regular workshop. Date as close thereafter as possible. Sorry for the delay. We had some training earlier that ran over. Our first item this evening is to discuss setting a date for the Arbor Day celebration. Lex?
Ben and I were, we would recommend that we do it on August 1st during our 150th anniversary.
Great idea.
So that way we actually get some participation instead of 3 people standing out.
Yay.
And it slipped through the cracks, and I think Ben was waiting for the forestry guy, and we never heard from him. And so we're just now getting around to do it, Henry. Dave, yes, hand up.
Trustee Woods?
It's gonna be too hot to plant new trees at that time of year.
Okay, we'll do it later.
Well,
Let's just do it.
if we can just do it, we'll do one little one, we'll water it a lot.
It's still gonna be too hot.
Okay.
We'll cover it.
But that's all we wanted to say about that.
Okay. Well, there's an action item later. So if anybody has any other questions or comments?
I think it's a great idea because it was just Henry and I last year, remember? And then maybe 1 or 2 other people.
Yeah. I mean, it's literally just me, Ben, I, myself, and the forestry guy, when I first started. I was the only people. So, and Dave was there too.
Henry and me.
We used to give it a lot more publicity. That got a lot more people in.
Okay. Okay, one at a time. Any other discussion on that? Okay, our next item is to discuss the 250th celebration.
Uh-huh.
I know town staff's been working on this. Go ahead, Lex.
So Dana the Walk's brother is a violinist, and he offered to come do it for free from 12 to 5. And he knows all kinds of songs, and he'll just put out a little tip hat. So we've signed him up to come play the violin on his little system and hang out, if that's okay with everybody.
I think we need
great.
to.
Yeah, sounds good. Second, any luck? Oh, well, the pony ride thing, I want to go look at the streets and maybe we choose a route that doesn't have any deficiencies in the pavement and see if there's a good place for where they can do the pony ride, and we'll just do like a block or whatever. If that's the case, then I think we could do it based on that conversation with
I
him,
like it, yeah.
as long as we're not, no dangerous conditions.
The property owner is in Argentina.
Okay. And half my family's in there. The other thing was, I think that was it. Oh yeah, the dunk tank. The dunk tank would be $583, but we kind of need to know now tonight. I think by Diane not going to the CML conference, we can afford it. If y'all want to, I will get in the dunk tank. I did just do a whole lot of code enforcement and make a lot of people throw the junk away. So.
Trustee Lewis?
I just want to point out that the last time there was a dunk tank at a public event like this, the then mayor and then commissioner had a dunk off and raised a lot of money because everybody wanted to dunk them, especially the commissioner for some reason.
And then we could do that. We could raise money, like 3 balls for $3 or something. You know. If everybody thinks that's a good idea, we'll move forward with it.
I'd be into it if it for a fundraiser for a good cause for the town.
Okay. Well, what would the board like that money to be raised for.
Do we need to decide tonight?
We can discuss it at the next meeting, I guess, before before August 1st, if we figure it out.
Well,
Well, also we want to market it.
well, town manager, what's a need that we have that we could use more funds towards? Pickleball courts?
What?
Boardwalks?
Boardwalks. Ski hill, maybe. Yeah, like the.
Water.
Let me think about it. I'll brainstorm with staff tomorrow. How about that? And see what's on the horizon.
Well, I think
And
so.
there might be other things I'm not even thinking of, so I'd rather have.
And if we could raise enough to cover the cost of the tank and then still make money on top of that for a cause.
Yeah.
I haven't gone to a carnival for a long time. It's probably $5 per ball nowadays. Or 10.
We'll see. All right.
Is
Well,
that a yes? I can.
yeah. Well, yeah. Let's just say yes, and then.
Or 5 for 20.
Like Henry said, it's gonna be so hot, I probably
Yeah.
would do it.
Yeah.
Okay,
All right.
anything else on that? We had that other list before, and there was a lot of great ideas on it.
Yeah.
They're all in place.
Yeah. We'll make a consolidated list for the next meeting,
Okay,
and so that we can update the board on it.
okay, sounds good. Any trustees have any other questions or comments on it? Looks great. Hearing none. Next item, discuss San Juan Solstice request to close the intersection at Silver Street and Third Street for the San Juan Solstice race. Letter was in your packet, with a nice diagram. And I see Mr. Graves is here this evening to speak.
Y'all know what a great thing the race is. We would just like to close the intersection between noon and close of the race, for runner safety coming in. I've talked to the county about getting barricades. We have talked to all the business owners. Nobody has an objection. I would appreciate your approval. Make this quick and simple.
Any trustees have that questions or comments?
I think that's a great idea because for safety, it's been pretty hectic at that intersection for a while.
I don't think it's an issue. It is an action item. No trustees have any comments. We have to bring in that.
Thank you very much.
Thank
you.
Thank you, Dave.
Okay, our next item is to discuss the 8th Street lease agreement. Copy of that. is in your packet.
Yeah, there are a few little things where the dates need to be updated. There's, Article 10, it refers to an article, but that article number is not there, but it's actually Article 5. And there's one place where there should be no on Article 7, Section 2. But however, this does allow for the fishing access. It also provides indemnification language. It does say that, just so everyone knows that, where is it? Where it gives the town manager. Under Article 4, it says this lease shall not be executed and entered by the town without the express initial approval by the town manager or designee of removal of existing trash, rubbish, materials, junk vehicles, used waste oil, used scrap tires, and related nuisance items. So we'll need to note, like, this is going to be passed by an ordinance, so we'll be putting out a notification, a notice for the first reading, and then we'll, at the second reading, we'll approve it. So I really don't see it being approved until like mid-July, maybe August 1st. And, but in the meantime, the new owner is having a plan to mitigate those things and get rid of those things. So I'll be working with him, and we just won't have, like, if the ordinance gets approved, the contract would not be, the agreement would not be executed fully until that stuff has been removed, and then the property owner and I sign it.
Perfect, correct. Trustee Wood?
On the fishing access, it says of a portion of the consideration of this lease agrees, lessee agrees to provide the town with reasonable access to fishing in the river adjoining lessee's property. And it's It's not adjoining his property, it's on his property.
Dan, is that something we need to fix when we put it in the ordinance?
Yeah, I think if I remember right, the guy who's leasing it, I can't remember his reason for that. But we can certainly address that.
Yeah, it's in the river adjoining Lisi's property, but I guess that is true. The river that is running through the Lisi's property.
Which is why we're asking for that concession.
You know, there was just surveys done on the property next to the medical center and that property. That show very accurately how much of the river is on that property. Is all of the river on that property?
On the property owner's property? No, none of that shows that part of the property. But on his improvement survey, you can see that there's like a triangle that goes through the river and touches the other side of the embankment. And so really it's just like the corner of his property that the river runs through.
Right, because a lot of that is Lake Street.
Yeah,
And then there's homes on the other side.
right. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
I'd be hesitant to tie it too closely to a survey or anything because over time rivers do tend to wander. So I'd either tie it to wherever the river is on his property or the high water mark or something like that.
So we can change that to the fishing in the river running through the Lisi's property or whatever language Dan comes up with.
I think it's fine.
Okay.
I was just saying, you know, we don't even really know exactly what we're talking about. So I think the key to that is the property owner is allowing people to go across that portion of his property.
Right.
That is in the river.
So between Dan and I will make the little changes and then we'll put a notice out for the first reading of the ordinance. And y'all will be seeing this a couple more times before it gets approved.
Right? Questions or comments on that item? Okay, next is discuss draft ordinance amending section 23-11, 23-14, and 23-15 performance standards, GBD, GBD, and MHR zoning districts.
So, I mean, the meat of this is real simple. If you look at the second page, what it's doing is in the mobile home residential district, it's adding a fourth performance standard that says travel homes located within a travel home park may not be occupied for more than 30 weeks in a calendar year. That's because the other one was travel homes in a mobile home park would not be allowed to be there for more than 30 weeks. But this makes a distinction between the mobile home park and the travel home park. And that travel homes in a travel home park can be there, they just can't be occupied for more than 30 weeks. On the next sections, all it's doing is changing the performance standard about screening in the form of a hedge or a wall or fence to exclude both vehicles for rent and for sale. So before it just said for sale, now it'll say for sale and for rent. Is everyone cool with that? Go ahead.
No,
Trustee Lindsay.
thank you. I appreciate that. No, I'm not cool with that. And the mobile home park makes perfect sense, as is explained by Michelle Pierce's letter. But I am opposed to changing the language in the zoning for the central business district and the general business district. I'm a little perturbed that the sportsmen and the outpost keep being conflated as being the same, and they're not. They do have some of the same business, but they're not the same, and they're not in the same zones. And one is in the historic district and one is not in the historic district. And I think that it behooves us to protect our historic district a little more strictly than we do the general business district. Wait. The outpost, which is what's prompting these changes, does not need to have his entire inventory on display. He is allowed to have representative inventory on display. He also will be doing maintenance, repairs, and washing of that inventory, and I would prefer that be behind a 6-foot fence, as is called for in the zoning for where he is. Yep, that's it. Thank you. I appreciate your time.
The requirements for general and central, the two business districts are the same,
The performance standards are.
correct? And it's never been applied to Lake City Auto. And they wash their vehicles in the open, in the public view. And I understand the historic district piece of that, but we're looking for fairness here. And so I speak in favor of this change.
May I rebut? Thank you. That particular business has been there for 60+ years, and has operated the same way the entire time. That business started out as an architect's office, and I think it, to be fair to the neighbors in the downtown area, we should be stricter, and we should enforce the letter and soul of the historic district. Thank you.
One other distinction rather in the code is that in the central business district, that is a conditional use to have that kind of business. In the general business, it is a use by right.
Yes, thank you.
Just saying. Just one other thing.
Any other trustees have any comments?
This is not an action item. What we needed was the ordinance and its form in which it would be considered at the next couple of meetings, or at least the next few times we discuss it. So if there's a majority that is not in favor of that, then we'll need to discuss it some more and figure out what will work. If the majority, I guess, in general, that it is something they do want to have considered and receive, notice it and receive public comment, or at least, move forward with it in the draft and make it, the actual ordinance that would be reviewed by the public, then we would need to know that.
Okay. My only comment on it would be is in the last meeting in the paper, I was quoted as saying that that's their property, and that's not what I was saying. I said that's their product. That business's product. So I just wanted to clarify that. Okay, any other trustees have any questions or comments? Nope. Okay,
So do we turn this into an ordinance and notice it and put it on our future agenda the way it is? Because that's what I need to know, because once I notice it as the ordinance that is available in the town hall for people to review. So
So do we need to ask about?
So what do we need, like a straw poll? I mean, it's not.
well, only one is spoken against it, so I would assume, and I don't want to assume, but I would assume that we would move forward with it the way it is.
Yeah, we're just looking for board direction so we don't waste time or resources.
Yeah. And then another thing too is that speaking to Jody, is that without having them putting a for sale sign on every vehicle that's for sale, which is not provided in the code, we won't know what's for rent or for sale, especially like when applied to Lake City Auto. And even what maybe be broken down or not necessarily, we won't know what's inoperable. It's ideally it would be inoperable, like that would be, it's less of an administrative burden and more administratively possible, even from a code enforcement perspective, if, either we need to change it so that we require them to put for sale or for rent on it, or or we allow for sale and for rent to be out there. But anything else that's not for sale for rent, we know for sure needs to be behind a fence.
I'm sorry, I think you just made a point for me. Because if it's behind a fence and he has a representative out front of either his rental or what he has for sale, then that's not an issue about putting signs on the things. And I did also, I'm sorry, forget to add that he agreed to build a 6-foot fence when if his hedge failed, which it has failed. He agreed to that. And now he is wanting special favors. So now I'm done. Thank you.
Yeah, I just don't want it to be like, you know, I get that there's different zonings and stuff. I just fear that like it becomes a outdoor scrapyard or mechanic thing, which is we just town clean up on.
Well, then that, and even with Lake City Auto, there's gonna be a fence built for anything that's stored that's not for rent or for sale. Like I already had a discussion with them, have some ideas. So the idea would be to, anything like that needs to be put behind the fence.
Correct, and it's, you know, Lake City Autos has used their power washer outside, but 99.9% of the mechanic work happens in the 3 days in their garage.
Right. I don't know if Doug says his own mechanic work, I'm not.
You look,
Well, it is a difference that the central business district is in the historic district and the general business district is. So that's kind of what the change I would think. We don't.
And it would be a 6-foot fence coming off the side of that building.
Yeah.
I know all the job trustees were here when this first came to us. The owner stated his plan is going to be building a building next to the garage, like a maintenance shed and storage and that kind of stuff. But because he went on deployment, he hasn't had the ability to start doing that. Now that's just verbal, it's nothing in writing, but that was what was presented to us. Yeah, so.
And I thought that was the plan, is to build the fence initially if the hedges failed.
I gotta look at that original permit. I don't know if that's in the permit or he agreed to that or not. I know that he wanted to do the hedge, not the fence, because he was planning on doing that building. He didn't want to build something he wanted to tear down once he built that building. And his plans have gotten delayed because he was
Deployed.
deployed.
But that's no fault of ours.
Yeah, I don't know if he had agreed to build a fence if the hedge failed. He agreed for it to be reviewed in 1 year, which it was. So, okay, I won't move forward noticing this. Are we gonna have further conversations about this?
Can you separate those two ordinances?
Um,
Like the mobile home thing and the other rent for sale or rent thing? Or are they just part and parcel?
No, there's just a 15-day notice and for every ordinance, we're doing 2 notices. So like this, it was to reduce cost. Ultimately, we were doing zoning changes, it requires the same 15-day notice public hearing period. We would just be doubling up on the cost of the notifications and passing the ordinance.
Yeah, and we did have some discussion on that, you know, it's still a plot as to like broken down equipment and all that stuff, we're not gonna allow that. So, I don't know if you come back and say that you have to build a small fence for that, you know,
All right.
and not fence the whole property, however you wanna do that.
Yeah. Do you want me to move forward if it gets turned down in a vote, or like if a bunch of people come out of the woodwork because there will be a public hearing on this?
Yeah, we could move
And
forward.
then to see if the public comment is against it and see how the vote votes.
I think that would probably be a bit of a process.
I can guarantee you it's not his intent to have a junkyard there.
No, I know, yes.
And,
No.
and it's his intent, to, you know, like I said, not have it be an eyesore.
Yeah, it's more about it's more about just the regulations and how we're going to be applying them equally to everyone. Uh, yeah,
Trustee Wood?
I kind of think we should wait on the whole thing myself. It's like, with the weather getting so much warmer all the time, people might want to live in their travel homes all year round at those trailer parks.
well, that would be other regulations.
Service, a thing for rent is a service for sale. So it's already addressed, I think, in the existing zoning. If it's something for sale, can be an item that you pay for, or it could be a service that is for sale.
It leaves a lot to interpretation.
So
Maybe
I
some,
think we could move forward, get to public comment,
Okay.
adjust the setting from there.
Yeah, we don't even take a vote after the public hearing. You know, we can get public comment and then we can discuss it again after that.
I think that'd be a good approach.
Okay. All right, that's what we'll do.
we'll have more discussion.
Yeah, we'll have a public hearing for you to get public comment.
Okay, any other trustees have any other comments on that issue? Okay, next is discuss Michelle Pierce letter regarding T1 tent camping permit process and rezoning block 69 from Terrace 1 to mobile home residential. I would share on this one. I did read Michelle's letter. I was in that meeting. I understand where she's coming from. I think this is definitely something, when you get into rezoning, gotta be careful, that's quasi judicial. And also, I do know when this first came up in the past about the tent camping over there, that there was discussion with some of the neighbors and their feelings at that time, but we still have to go to the public.
We would still need to notice them directly and have a public hearing.
Right.
Yeah.
But I can tell you, there was some feedback there that they don't want to see the rezone because that could evolve into additional RV spaces on that property. And that's what's limited that till now. So, just something to keep in mind. And and by the way, I don't know if you saw, but there was a letter in a packet where Danielle Worthman had brought that up.
She had sent an email earlier saying that the adjoining property owner should be directly noticed and that there would be a public hearing, which all that would happen.
Right.
If we were to consider moving forward, she recommended it, but I know there was resistance last time. And really, from her point of view, there's no point of planning and zoning reviewing anything. Like, if anything, it should go directly to the trustees for approval. It shouldn't involve planning and zoning because they can't, as long as they're meeting the way it's written and their definition is that if they're meeting the campground regulations of the state and they're providing the food storage and the fair-proof trash cans, then there's nothing they can't deny it. If it's in the T1 zone and they meet all those things, anybody can camp anywhere in the T1 zone. So, she's saying that it should go directly to trustees. So I can look at options there. We don't necessarily have to rezone it, but maybe we reconsider the definition or the process and see if we can't come up with something that makes more sense.
I think that'd be a smart way to go. I understand what she's saying. It should not be going in front of planning and zoning.
Yeah.
Every time, but that there should be a process in place. If somebody else comes to us and asks, one of my concerns was is that campsite's going to pop up all over.
Yeah, because there's no other criteria for them to deny. So that's what she's saying.
Right.
Yeah.
But it seems to me that this person that changing the zoning is pretty radical. I think it'd be worth looking into other ways. That's where it could be handled by staff. Okay, any trustees have any other comments on that? Okay. next item is to discuss resolution 2026-07 Packard Saloon and Cannibal Grill temporary revocable encroachment license agreement. We'll have a copy of that in your packet. And the trustees have any questions or comments on that? Trustee Lindsay?
I did not get to think about this very well at the last meeting, when Mr. Bortrubo was here. But I have thought about it, and I think this is a really well thought out plan, that he has done his homework. And that, when the town of Lake City received money to pave Silver Street, it was exactly that kind of thing that they had in mind, was expanding our businesses out into the street every once in a while. That's it. Thank you.
Any other questions?
I mean, it says in the fourth whereas, to use the temporary area as an additional customer seating area. There won't be any seating out there. It's a standing area. Just so you know. I don't know if we need to change that. They'll be taken.
Additional customer area. So they're not gonna, Josh, are you on? Yeah, can you clarify that?
Yeah, sorry, I raised my hand because it just opened. So yeah, we don't intend on having any kind of seating out there. We intend, it was misrepresented in the paper as well. It said we were going to have whiskey girls. It was going to be whiskey barrels that we are going to use to put people to have drinks on. And then yeah, it's going to be standing room only. So
Thanks,
we're talking 6 whiskey barrels. I'm going to say roughly 30 people. We're going to put all the umbrellas down, clear view of the stage, just a little extra action for the town in case we need it as an overflow. I mean, it's a free event. So I mean, obviously we have to cap it if we get too many people in there, but I just want to make sure we have enough space for everybody who wants to be a part of the event.
I'll just say customer area. Let's take out,
Yeah.
like, if this gets approved tonight, let's do it with the amendment.
Okay.
Let's see. Be removed.
I would just like to, I totally agree with trustee Lindsay. I think it's a great idea. I think the effort goes. But yeah,
Yeah.
And like we said about kind of a test scenario, but it's also at a time of the year when town normally dies off and goes notice about the middle of August when school starts in Texas. Things slow way down. I think it could be great for the town to bring more business and visitors during those times. And it's also on Monday night. The crowd would be a little bit better, and as Mr. Recruiter put in his letter, none of those other businesses on that section are open.
Yeah, this would be from 3 p.m. to 11 p.m. when he's having, so they have time to set up.
That's good.
And then it will be, I'll have them also, if it gets approved, I'll have them also do a little encroachment permit, pay the fee, and then we'll sign this license agreement if it gets approved as it is.
You got a copy of that on that? That is an action item. Seeing none?
Mayor, can I add one more thing? I'm sorry.
Yes, sir.
I just wanted to add that, I mean, to kind of piggyback off of what Trustee Lindsay had said, I could honestly see somewhere down the road this event outgrowing what we do at Packers and this becoming some kind of street party on Silver Street, like an event for the town. I mean, everybody focuses on us being OHV centric for what we do. But I mean, this could turn into something much bigger than that. And we could end up having some kind of large event that brings more and more people to the town and just continues to grow our tourism. So I kind of have a plan in future for the future on what we want to do, but I mean, we'll just see how it all transpires.
Okay,
You're here.
thank you. Okay, our next item is discuss resolution 2026-08 submitting to the registered electors of the town of Lake City a ballot question to consider changing the town of Lake City regular municipal election from April to November in even numbered years at the November 2026 general statewide election coordinated by Hinsdale County. We discussed this in the past meeting. Sounded like all the trustees were on board with that. Do any trustees have any questions or comments on that?
And that part where it says beginning at the November 2028, that's unnecessary and superfluous, and then it's assuming that it gets approved.
Correct.
So that that would need to be struck from whatever gets approved as well. I had changed it in the actual ballot language, but I did not change it in the title of the resolution. I meant to do that.
Change what?
Trustee Woods?
This one and the next item, I think we really need to beware of changing the original town charter of the town of Lake City.
So I mean, it's by state statute. By state statute, we have our elections the first Tuesday in April on even numbered years. All towns are typically in the even numbered years, and cities are in the odd numbered years, according to state statute. We could do it on odd number of years, which Christina actually put together a little report about that from her research. However, a lot of the other, I didn't find one community that went from even number of years in April to odd number of years in November. Not one. And even if we did do something like that, and ultimately, if it got approved by the voters, Henry, we would pass an ordinance that showed that change within our municipal code.
So the other thing I was reading about here is that why are the elections so damn expensive?
Everything's
They used to
expensive.
cost $700.
Everything's
And then
expensive.
it went up to 1,100, and all of a sudden it's 10,000.
12,000.
That's ridiculous. We need to figure out, have our people get trained to do the elections.
It would still be about $6 or $7 grand even without having a consultant.
Well,
And a lot of other communities are already doing this because the expenses of everything's going up and they're trying to save money where they can. And so, yeah, this has actually been really common over the past 5 years where towns are doing coordinated elections with their counties.
well, I wonder if they can save money somehow.
This is one of the ways.
Yeah, this one of the ways to cut it down to $3,000. You're saving paper by not sending out ballots.
Save money and trees.
Yeah, 2 times a year.
It works out.
And once again, this was something being presented to the voters.
Yes.
So if they don't want to do it, but I think we're doing it correctly by presenting it to them and how they feel about it.
Yeah.
Trustee Bruce?
What were you changing, Lex, specifically?
Just in the title where it says beginning in November 2028 in the title of the resolution.
Oh,
That's it.
got it.
The ballot question is correct.
Okay.
Wait, did I print out the wrong one?
This is.
Wait, is
Hold on, let me see the one that's loaded because it may.
is it 2026-08?
Yeah, this one. Oh. No, the 2026 is. No, not that one. Oh, wait. Let's see, but let me look at the ballot language. Okay, no, the one that y'all have is the correct one in terms of the ballot language. I had the one where I didn't strike out the language that I printed out the wrong one for myself.
Okay.
So what did it say in the title?
Beginning of November of.
Okay, yeah, that's the part I still think that should be removed from the title. Yes.
Beginning in November
Yeah.
of 2028.
Because it
Yeah.
just seems in a path.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks, sir.
Any trustees have any other questions or comments on that? And the next one is very similar, but I'll go ahead and read it. Discuss resolution 2026-09, submitting to the registered elections of the town of Lake City a ballot question to consider changing the number of trustees on the town of Lake City Board of Trustees should be reduced from 6 to 4 at the November 2026 general statewide election coordinated by Hennepin County. We've had discussion on this in our past meetings. Any trustees? Trustee Lindsay?
Sorry, thank you. Yes, I have spoken out against this idea and for this idea, and because it is, I think, such a tenet of our democracy that we have good representation on this board and in every legislative board. And I am concerned that reducing the number, and I'm for taking it to the people, but I'm concerned that reducing the number of trustees might concentrate the power in such a way, because we're so powerful, that might not be beneficial for the town. Here we have a wide variety, a as diverse a group as you can get in Lake City. And I think that's great. And we all strengthen Lake City and the town of Lake City. So I just wanted to get that out. Thank you.
Any other trustees? Trustee Wood?
I also believe that, it's not a good thing that it will dilute or, discourage more public participation among our citizens.
Trustee Bruce?
I speak in favor of this. Number one, because we have had difficulty filling our seats in the past. And number two, if the county can do it with 3, we can do it with 5.
I've shared this in past meetings. One of the reasons I'm in favor of it is we always ended up with empty seats. And after being a trustee for 4 years and mayor for 4 years, I'm trying to think back to the last time there was an election where people were actually running and putting out the effort to gain the vote and be a representation of the people. And I feel that's a little bit different when we sit with empty seats and then the board plants people in because you need another body in there. And I feel as though when you have to run for it, you take that position a little bit more serious. I'm not saying the people that are appointed don't, but it makes you a little bit more dedicated to that job. And you have people to answer to because they voted for you, as compared to the board just filled an empty seat. So that's one of the reasons, personally, I'm in support of it. Trustee Winnie?
How does that work? If it does get voted from 4 to 6, what is the positioning? Is it just,
It wouldn't make,
Yeah, it wouldn't, everyone would fill their full term. And then at the next election, there would be simply fewer seats available. And if there was a 4-year term that was up, yeah, it would just reduce the total number of seats at the next election.
And the next election would be when, if it is passed in
Well,
2028.
Well, this would, if it passed this year, then it would, at the 2028 election.
Wait, I forgot it's 2026. Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, so if it passes this year, then it wouldn't be till the 2028 election where it would take effect.
Gotcha. Thank you.
trustees have questions or comments on that? Hearing none, that's an action item this evening. Okay, and next is discuss Klein Eatery request for a revocable encroachment permit for a 15-foot encroachment in the eastern right-of-way of Gunnison Avenue for a dog-friendly patio.
Yeah.
Lex?
So I mean, I didn't really get into looking at this and looking at the zoning and figuring out what's the front, back, and side until yesterday. And so, I mean, looking at it, technically the front is the side that's along Gunnison Avenue. That's its address. And so on the right, both sides and the back, there's actually 0 setbacks. On the front, there's supposed to be a 25-foot setback. But I think there's only like a 5-foot setback with the building that's there that exists. With them building that porch on the eastern side of the building or the southern side of the building in the parking lot, that is actually they can do it, but that should have at least received. They should have asked for a variance on the off-street parking requirements, or even now, because they'll have more area, more customer floor area, they really need to prove that that they have enough off-street parking that's on their own property to meet the regulation for one off-street parking space per 200 square feet. And if not, then they really need to do a variance, like need to go through the process of planning and zoning to get a variance approved. But so, and also since it's a for-profit business, I mean, we're making, Lake City Auto, they're in our right of way. They're doing a lease. The slice of land there with the RV park on Bluff, they paid for a lease. They paid for that lease for that. So what I'm just saying is that the other for-profit businesses that have a right of way, that they're not getting encroachments, they're getting leases, you know? So that was something else I wanted the board to discuss as well.
Which I would agree with.
Trustee Leonard, you have your hand up. Okay, trustee Arizona.
So I'm representing the town for the chamber. And Climb submitted a contract or proposed a contract to share parking with the chamber. So that would take care of that part, even though there'd be more seating and less parking on the west side of their property. They would have more parking in turn of sharing the parking spaces that they said they'd pay for and maintain with the chamber. So I feel like that part's covered.
Yeah, well, I would just need them to show that to me. I can't administratively say, oh, you're right, but if it's something where, and there's a variance that needs to be had, then that I would say that they go through that, and also I did go over there and walk it and looked at it and at least saw where the sewer line was. And we walked off and their measurements are actually really accurate. But not a dually, not a big truck with an extended cab. You may not be able to park that in front of it and not be in the way of like Gunnison Avenue. But most vehicles would be able to park, straight ahead, right to where that fence is, and not be in the way of traffic. And Gunnison Avenue next
Parking
down.
east-west when you say straight.
Yes, correct. So I just wanted to say that, like, they're actually not removing more parking here. So yeah, I just wanted to say that.
My question is just due north properties have boulders in the right of way of town.
What? I'm sorry, what?
So the north property, due north of the Climb Eatery, right there in the right of way on Gunnison Ave is an entire half of the right of way is eaten up by yard and rocks.
Yeah.
So that would, if that was drawn back to apply to on or roadside parking, would be plenty enough.
Yeah, no, I didn't, it was more about the off-street parking provided on their own property from the other porch. It was like a separate thing.
Well, yeah.
And that's why I said that I don't think it would interfere with parking along Gunnison Avenue.
Well, yeah, I'm
In the
just
right of way.
curious.
Yeah,
Because basically their encroachment permit is less distance than the existing boulders that are in the right of way.
That's true.
yeah. I don't see a problem with it, with the parking from that side. It's more that with the porch that they built or the deck on the southern side in the parking lot, are they still providing enough off-street parking?
True. Yeah.
That is a separate thing. But this, I don't think that would interfere with the parking on Gunnison
I
Avenue.
think there's also 23 feet of support between, what does it say?
Yeah, it's on the bigger picture, the colored one, where they actually wrote that in and not on the little drawing.
Yeah. Yeah, but there's 23 feet between basically the roadway that exists today. So like that's more than enough for a pickup per se.
Yeah.
Well, personally, I'll get to you in a second, Tyler. I think that brings new light to it. The fact that they're working on a lease with the chamber to add additional parking spaces. As you all know, during the busy season in this town, parking is an issue. And I remember trying to go to Climb on nights without things that, and on a movie night, and it was very crowded, but it's not our job as enforcement officers. We're relying on Gabe to make sure that they meet those requirements of, there's a certain amount of square footage of customer space requires so many parking spaces. Hearing they're working on the roof, that kind of thing, that opens that up. So
I think
we need to learn more about that.
I think they should still apply for a variance and show that out on the application. They would be more, that would work in their favor in terms of.
Okay, Tyler, I see you have your hand up.
Yeah. Just to clarify a few things as far as the south deck and our entryway, it's about 32 plus, I don't know, 40 feet of decking that we added to the south. Standard parking spots, roughly 8.5, 9 feet wide. We lost 5 spots. With our agreement with the chamber, we're adding 6. So we're actually gaining a spot that we lost building the south deck. We have 7 spots between the south deck to the end of our property. If we include the west side, which doesn't sound like we're too concerned about, we have another 8 spots. And if we want to, we could allow customers to park diagonally on the north of our alley because that's our property that we only use for deliveries, which would gain another 6 spots. So I think with 28 to 30 parking spots, either directly on or adjacent to our property, there's really no parking issue.
Yeah, I just put that, and all I'm simply saying, Tyler, if you just give me a little parking diagram, show that to me, show how much customer.
Yeah, we have to turn one into Gabe anyway. He requested one. So we'll get that drawn up and sent over.
Yeah, that's all I'm really asking for.
Okay.
Yeah. Now in terms of it being a lease or a permit, really I need y'all's direction on that.
The dimensional square foot of 40 by 28.
Well, they're 15 feet into it, and then how wide is it? What did it say right here?
41 feet.
Or 40 feet? So, yeah. 15 by 40.
It says 600 square feet.
So
No,
would this be renewable every year then, or?
I mean, this is totally up to you. You get to determine the terms, but, with that, if they're building something, permanent, like building a fence there or a dog patio, then, I would think that they would want more assurance that they would be able to continue to use it that way unless we had to do something in a right of way or rehabilitate the sewer line, which that was done in recent memory. So I don't think that needs to be done anytime soon.
Is it gonna be over the sewer line?
No, there's 9.5 feet more or less between their fence and the sewer line.
So, we're gonna have to be careful to be equitable, right? What is the square footage of what we have leased to Lake City Auto? At what rate, divisible, per square foot to be applied maybe to this? I don't think we could charge more for
I wouldn't recommend we charge more. I mean, there's definitely more areas with more of a right of way being leased at the other place.
Do you understand what I'm saying, though?
Yeah, I do. I understand what you're saying.
We didn't need to prorate it so that we can come up with an equitable figure.
what are the dimensions of the lease?
I need to go walk it off and roll it out if I can, if there's a bunch of machines in the way.
Well, okay, I'll do too. So,
Yeah, I don't know how I would do that with all those machines there. I think you might have an idea.
No, it's less than a quarter of an acre. We've already measured it out.
okay. Then I'll be do math.
Okay, so do the math, and then we're leaning towards a lease. Is that what everybody's thinking?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Really, that's all I need to know. I can come back to you with a draft of something.
What is your thought? Should it be a lease or should it be a?
I mean, I think it should be a lease. If we're charging other businesses for using our right of way for their business, and we should do the same with them. You know what I mean? It's not like a neighbor. It's not like a property owner, a homeowner who has been taking care of the grass in the town right away forever. And they want to put a little, like a fence out, 10, 15 feet. So they're just encapsulating the area they've been taken care of anyway. And there's no utilities there. There's nothing there that they're interfering with by putting that fence there. That's different. That's like an encroachment, a revocable encroachment.
Well, and it's not a money making.
Yeah. And it's not for profit, right?
The same at the same rate per square footage by the square footage would be $36 a month.
$36 a month.
Yes.
Thank you, Linda.
Okay.
So what's the benefit, Lex, just for educational purposes, the difference between lease.
I mean, with like an encroachment permit, they're just paying a fee, like $100 application fee. I would go and look at the property, see what they're proposing, see if it, if it would interfere with, like Ethan and I did one or walked one recently, and it doesn't come near any of our utilities. There's no other utilities there. It doesn't block the vision triangle of a corner of of an intersection. It doesn't propose any kind of uh, like nuisance or any kind of it doesn't cause any public harm, right? And so, but that is like for that it's just a permit. It's just saying, okay, this is not going to hurt anybody, and you're paying the application fee. We're going to approve it as you propose, and we're done with it. Whereas a lease, it's more for one, they're going to be using it as like a business or like part of their business. They're even marketing it that way. We have a dog patio, and so that space is being used for profit on public property. And so it's more of you're leasing it to them, and you're with the lease too, it's just not revocable at any time for any reason. It's kind of like there's a process there, and like we would need to, really think it through or really explain or, have a good reason for us to break that lease if we ever did.
You could also see if you have a lease, give permission, they build their deck, and then you remove the lease, they would have to remove the built. There would be cost in additional to that, wouldn't there?
Well, if that's put into the lease agreement or
Okay.
Yeah, Lex is
ahead.
right. That those encroachment permits are generally granted because they're more easily and quicker to revoke. And a lease kind of gives both parties a more long-term relationship.
Well, I know we're pro-business, and, they're doing some expansion over there. I just still have concerns. What if? I've looked at the other lease that we're working on, and there are protections for the town, and I think that's very important, because as traffic increases and all that, let's see what they're proposing as far as the additional parking spaces over there. But I know personally it gets crowded during the peak seasons.
Yeah.
And I just don't know. And the other thing I'd like more, now I'm hearing pet deck, but somebody told me that this was going to be a pretty simple, it was, I guess in the letter I saw a split rail fence and some gravel. So in the case of something came up, the town had to have or get that property back, that's something that's removable as compared to, somebody spending $50,000 on a deck. So I'd like some more clarity as to exactly what's being built.
Okay.
And make sure that the town is protected. We got to be careful.
Right.
That we don't all of a sudden know everybody wants to lease town property, but it's so limited.
Right.
It's not much available. So I'm just, that's a concern. Lex?
No, I was gonna say, Tyler, did you hear that? Like, they wanted to have some more details about what kind of fence it would be, how big it is, what you're really proposing, like something they can visualize and see. And then also, if you give the parking plan and show, just how much how much customer floor area you have, how much off-street parking you have, the agreement you have with the chamber, I think both of those things would allay some concerns and allow us to move forward from there.
I really thought the detailed drawing that I gave you guys would probably be enough to work with, but no, Dave, I hear what you're saying. It's a simple split rail fence with gravel. There is no permanent structure going in. It's simply going to be access for people with dogs because state of Colorado requires a separate entrance. So people who don't want to interact with dogs don't have to, whatever. So it's completely low impact, removable as far as that goes. If that provides any clarity for the situation, I think on our end, we're totally willing to go the lease route. Seems absolutely fair, understandable. We have no problems with that. I think anybody who's been paying attention or knows what's going on understands we are trying our hardest to get things moving as fast as possible at this point. So I think from our end, it's just kind of, are we waiting 2 weeks for the next meeting to have a vote on this? Is this something we can have a special session on? Like, I think we just want to get it done at this point. And if a lease
Yeah.
is the route, then let's go that route.
I mean, if it's a lease, we would have to do it by ordinance like we're doing the other one. We'll have to like publish notice twice of the ordinance. And so, no, it wouldn't be anytime soon. It would probably be like, really probably August. You know, like maybe the first meeting in August at best.
Okay. I mean, that totally understandable. You know, we want to comply, make it easy for everybody, but that helps us wrap our heads around it.
Okay. Yeah, and just get that other stuff to me as soon as you can, and we can get all that cleared up. And start moving forward with it.
Okay.
If the trustees want to do that, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
No, I appreciate it. That helps us a lot.
Justin,
I'm just curious if we could, give him an encroachment while we work on a lease. Would that be possible? Or, I mean, I'm not sure about
Legally permissible, yes.
so I don't know, just an idea.
that might speed up the process for them. I know summer's upon us. I'm going to circle back around the key. The other one that's key to me is there's a reason we have an agreement with the county building inspector. We're not the ones in charge of that. So when they get their information to him and we get a recommendation or a blessing from Mr. McNeese, then we have the information in place. But for us to go ahead and approve something that hasn't been approved through the building department would be foolish on our part.
Yeah.
All in the right word.
But I think it's a good idea without adding too much extra work to our staff, that in an effort to get it moving, you know, is it worth doing,
I mean,
an encroachment first so that they can get it done and then iron out the lease, because we've learned the leases take time.
yeah. I mean, if what he provides is all cool and kosher and y'all have y'all's blessing, go ahead.
I think it should just be contingent upon Gabe's approval.
Yeah.
We can
I mean,
approve it.
yeah. Yeah. Well, the concerns that the trustees brought up, because we'll bring that back to you to prove it to you, because it's been a question. But yeah, if that comes back, then if we can issue a temporary encroachment that would allow it, but that's not the end all be all. You know, it would be on contingent upon us working through a lease.
That's what
Like they wouldn't be able just to have the permit.
That's what.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and also that other documentation, like.
Yes. That would be all part. I would make it all part of their encroachment application.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. We'll figure something out, Tyler.
Yeah, that sounds great, guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Tyler.
Okay, any trustees have any other questions? Okay, hearing none, that will conclude our workshop for this evening. The time is 7:37 p.m. Can we take a quick break? No. You don't want to break? Okay, keep going then.
It's up to you guys.
Let's get through it.
Okay. The time is 7:37 p.m., Wednesday, June 17th, 2026, and I'd like to call to order the regular meeting of the Lake City Board of Trustees. Begin with the pledge of allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
Bruce. Here. Lindsay. Here. Tripsono.
Here.
Winery.
Here.
Woods.
Here.
Least.
Here.
Roberts.
Here. Okay, approval of the agenda for our meeting, regular meeting, June 17th, 2026.
I make a motion to I move to approve the agenda for the regular meeting, June 17th, 2023.
I second.
Motion and a second. Discussion. Roll call vote.
Bruce.
Yes.
Lindsay.
Yes.
Trivison.
Yes.
Winery.
Yes.
Woods.
Yes.
Least.
Yes.
Roberts.
Yes. All right, next item, regular meeting minutes from the June 3rd meeting. In the packet. Trustee Spellcheck, do you have anything for it?
Tina did those all on her own. Wonderful.
Awesome.
Take a motion to approve the regular meeting minutes of 06/03/26.
Second.
Motion and second, roll call vote.
Bruce.
Yes.
Lindsay.
Yes.
Trivison.
Yes.
Winery.
Yes.
Woods.
Yes.
Least.
Yes.
Roberts.
Yes. Next time is bill payable for June 17th. I noticed, not a big deal, but it wasn't in the packet. I normally like to review them earlier in the day. I got it here at the meeting. Any red flags, forest flags?
I mean, there's hopefully never a red flag, but
Anything we need to be aware of that?
That's-
ordinary?
that's unique. Let me see, because no, let's see, no. And Henry, to give you an idea of how much things cost these days, if you look at item 104, the Silver World Publishing, the water quality report that we have to publish every year costs us $2,448.
Is that 3 pages or?
It's
5 pages.
yeah, and that's we're required by state law to publish it that way. But just give you an idea of how expensive it is.
Good job.
I make a motion to pay the bills on June 17th, 2026 in the total amount of $44,636.17.
Second. Motion and second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote, please.
Bruce.
Yes.
Lindsay.
Yes.
Trivison.
Yes.
Winery.
Yes.
Woods.
Yes.
Least.
Yes.
Roberts.
Yes. Next item, citizens' comments on items not on the agenda. We have some citizens with us this evening. Anybody have the comments for us or anything not on the agenda? Anybody?
Yeah, it's Doug France here online. Hey, sorry, I was late to the meeting, and of course, my question is about an item on the agenda. So you can tell me to pound sand and move on. But hey, item E, I couldn't get here in time. Performance standards. Could I get a refresh on the cliff notes of the discussion, or can we highlight that later? Please advise.
I can contact you later. We're gonna have a public hearing. We're gonna publish that ordinance a couple times. We're gonna have a first reading, and then we're gonna have a public hearing, and then we'll have a second reading and possible vote on it.
Okay, that works. Thanks, Lex. Appreciate the feedback.
Okay. Anybody else on Zoom? Have any comments of items not on the agenda? Raise your hand or unmute yourself. Seeing none, we'll move on. Next item this evening is committee reports. First one is Lake San Cristobal Water Activity Enterprises, Pesky Woods.
So we met at a special meeting and we approved $93,000 to put in a special low flow outlet structure to better manage and track low flow releases. So, having it when we're contemplating some real some calls and some desperate situations, and it's hard we have a call and Robert has to run out there, go down to that hole and raise those gates up and down. This will be a pipe that goes through that has a measuring device on it. And it will, be controllable at the, Upper Gunnison River Water Conservancy District offices by Sonia, their engineer. So if the CPW or the Bureau of Reclamation wants a, you know, extra 3 cubic feet per second or something, or 2, that we'll be able to measure exactly, and Sonia will be able to do it, Gunnison. It's, you know, that this is, in the past, has been an infrequent thing. But now it's much more, we're contemplating it'll be much more frequent.
Okay.
And both the flow out of Lake San Cristobal and Henson Creek right now are right about 100. And their historical average this time of year is for Henson is 400. The Lake Fork is 500. So you can see we're 20 to 25% of our normal flows.
Trustee Lindsay?
When is the load flow gate supposed to be installed?
This fall.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, well, it's an issue all over the state and especially down the street. I go by Blue Mesa twice a week and it's amazing. Very scary. I love that. But, other than that, we pray some more and now your blessings were out the head. Be very tough. Like how in Trump, following some reports on that, and critical level right now, the ability to produce power. Going to get really. Anybody have any questions or comments for President Woods on that? Next item is Gunnison Basin Roundtable.
So I hope everybody saw the report. They're really nice to me now to do the reports for me. And I emailed it out at the beginning of the month. But we did grant requests and there's a report on the Gunnison River negotiations right now. And I hope everybody saw their street potatoes. Yeah, up in the San Luis Valley. Thank you, well, so.
Got it. I did see your report. Maybe we'll get that for you.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. Any trustees, any other questions or comments? Or thank you. Seeing none, next is Historic Preservation Commission, Mr. Fox.
Last time I was here, it was after the April meeting. We did not have a regular May meeting. So I have a few things to go through. I see you folks have a lot on your plate today. We have not dealt with any real controversial issues. So I will quickly go through the things that we've dealt with, just so you know what we've dealt with. Last year, we changed the bylaws to allow the HPC to administratively approve some COA application certificate of appropriateness applications, primarily for fences and sheds that adhere to the Lake City design guidelines. Towards the end of May, we had two. The way that works is, as chair, I have a look at it, and I usually do it with, still have a subcommittee check with one other person on my board. To have a look at what the application is asking for. And then if we decide it adheres to the guidelines, then myself and Lex sign off on it. Towards the end of May, we approved the shed right across the alley here at the soda shop and a fence here in the backyard of the Witt property next to the old sheriff's office on Henson Street. We approved at the June meeting, regular meeting, we approved some changes to the exterior siding and other things on Justin Lamont's residence at 221 Lake Street. Those materials also fit within the design guidelines, so that wasn't a problem. We approved a standalone 10 by 10 solar restroom at the Catholic Church up here.
Oh, wow. That's great.
They required, I mean, when they have events, the restroom in the church isn't enough.
There isn't one.
There isn't one?
No.
Oh, okay. Well, then there's good reason. There's good reason for having it.
That's what he's,
Yeah, they have a porta potty.
well, they put that in, well, since I've been there.
Okay. The most major thing that we dealt with was at 322 and 324 Silver Street, just down here past Packers, the buildings that have been empty for a long time, owned by Mike Paxson. He put in a request to change the facades on those buildings. One was built in one closest to Packers was built in 1977, but the front facade was put on in 1991, and the building, the old title company, was built in 1991 also. And the facade that's on it now was put up to kind of remind people of the old Occidental Hotel with the board and batten, vertical board and batten. Paxton's would like to change that to horizontal lap siding and put a cornice on it. So it's a little bit different kind of decorative look on it. Go ahead.
Wood lap siding?
It would be hardy board like. For a non-contributing building, that's okay. And with the new fire restrictions and so on, I think we're going to see more of that. Anyway, those new facades will look a little bit like the buildings right across the street, the workout place and 38 degrees north or whatever it is. There was some discussion on that kind of a change, but it was approved, and so within about 6 weeks or so, we should see, and we can all come to our conclusions as to what we think about that look in Lake City. But it adheres to the design guidelines that we have. The only other small thing. Derek Wright, his new house, he asked to change the configuration of the big front windows to shorten them a little bit. It changes it from a vertical orientation of the whole window opening to a more square one, but it's still dealing with two vertically oriented windows in each one, and we concluded that that was still appropriate within the guidelines. So that was approved. Yeah, that's what we dealt with over the past 2 months. I do have a quick comment on, and I don't know the number of the it's an ordinance that you're dealing with here where you're talking about some fencing to shield equipment and things like that within the central business district. I just want to comment that we want to make sure we, from the historic preservation point of view, we don't want to see equipment and materials placed in front of historic or other buildings with 6-foot fences in front of that. I understand that the 6-foot fence that's being requested, I think this going through the planning commission, right?
No.
No. Oh,
I mean, the planning commission, it did go through the planning commission. They recommended a fence be built, a 6-foot fence to shield stored equipment, which in this case is rental OHV.
yeah, okay, no, I understand that. And that's not, I mean, most of the businesses in the business district are flush up against the property lines and so on, so there's not room for that. But there are some where that's not the case, and especially in the case of historic buildings.
Yeah, they would never be in front of the facade.
Okay,
Yes, that's what you're concerned about.
that's the concern.
Yeah, we're good.
Okay.
It would come directly off the side.
Okay, last little comment, I've gotten quite a bit, just so you know how this works a little bit. I've had a surprising number of people stop by my place and ask me whether this huge fence that's going in on Gunnison Avenue was approved by us. And I just want to make clear that it's, kind of across from the church, next to Gaudi's property. There's big posts that are there.
They just haven't cut off the tops yet.
Right.
Is what
We approved, what was requested and that we approved was a 3-foot fence in the front and 5 foot on the sides. I talked with the owner. It may end up being a little bit higher than that. But that's within the guidelines.
Okay.
The other, I did get people asking me whether a roof change in G&M Cabins was approved by us. I just want to say, and I let the town know about that report, but I looked into it a bit, and I can say that they did consult with Gabe McNeese. He did his due diligence in making sure that it was being replaced with same materials, so there was no issue.
Good. Thank you, Joe. That took it off my list.
All right.
Okay, that's all I have.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any trustees have any questions for Mr. Fox?
Thank you.
Okay, next is the Chamber of Commerce, trustee Trevisani.
So the chamber is planning the July 3rd, what is it, July in the Park? That, the types of food and everything, it seems like it's going pretty well. There will be a $5 admission fee for the parade for each float. So that is going to go towards fireworks. So if anyone asks you, that's what it's going to go towards, which is a fund that rolls over year after year. There is a chance, just like every year, depending on fire restrictions and monsoon season, there could not be fireworks, very possible. But like I said, that admission fee gets built up over time. So they could use that, we could use that next year or next time there's fireworks. Also, I think the chamber is planning on opening up like they used to sponsorships for fireworks because they're really expensive. And it's like that gives someone the opportunity to sponsor that event. So that could be really cool. And then, like I mentioned earlier, the climb agreement, they're working on that. I don't think it was finalized yet because they just needed to check a few things. That's it.
All right. Anybody have any questions? None? Next is Marketing Committee, trustee Bruce.
I have emailed the report to all of you.
Nice.
The end.
Mine didn't open up on the tablet.
It wouldn't?
I didn't get it. Someone else said
Yeah,
they
mine-
couldn't open it.
Blank.
Yeah, it's blank.
I haven't had any emails.
I will email it to you.
Um,
Well, I tried to read it.
That's why I said lies. He didn't say it.
It says there's a J tag at the bottom, but it doesn't open up. We will all read that and have our questions for you at the next meeting.
Awesome.
Okay?
If there shouldn't be any questions. They're doing really well.
The next is the MAC committee, trustee Winery. There was a meeting, but
After this meeting, I still haven't been in contact with anybody. I haven't gotten an email
Yeah.
from anybody that, like, do they know that I'm on the
Phil
committee?
Burton, I copied you on the email when I sent him your contact information. And so Phil he acknowledged the receipt of it, but I guess it just hasn't been a meeting.
Okay. Bill Graham.
Yes.
okay, next item is Dirk, trustee Bruce.
And basically, well, between the last meeting and now, we've got another donation for the playground, another like $7,000, right, Lex?
Something.
And so we're really, doing good stuff. It's gonna be paying for a lot of the infrastructure
And
part of it.
and the landscaping.
And so, then also we're working on the festival already, so. And Dirk's looking forward to hosting the beer tent at our August 1st celebration.
And I've noticed the flower baskets.
They were delivered and put up. They look good, huh?
They look really good, but I feel for Ben. I saw him out there with 5 gallon buckets. Looking good at this heat, so
No,
thank you to Ben and his art department. Doing their
absolutely.
best to keep those looking good. Any questions on Dirk?
Can I clarify something really quick?
Yeah.
Okay, so I mentioned the $5 admission fee. That's just for if you have a float. It's not if you're watching the parade.
What if you have a OHV?
Anything that's in the parade.
How are we gonna get that out to people? Because I have a real concern about people coming into town for this, and it's never been done before, and you're on a public roadway. How are you gonna keep people out of a public roadway?
Well, that's a good point, because you could go off the side, you could go on the highway, whatever.
Yeah.
Like, even if the highway was blocked, there's still ways to get in there, And you just wouldn't be included in, there's a vote or something, like a contest,
Yeah,
right? You wouldn't be included in that.
Yeah.
You wouldn't get a number.
So it's more like registering for the contest,
Right.
the best float in the parade.
But, it's for a good cause. Like, if people.
no, I don't argue that, but I'm just saying it's gonna cause consternation with people.
Yeah.
Because they're not gonna know,
For sure.
Yeah.
so.
That's a good point.
All right.
Okay. All right, next is Region 10, trustee Lees. I saw you were at the meeting.
What?
We cannot.
Even on a camera.
Like the officers that did flood review and I'm still learning, like, what's the broadband, original broadband, what they actually covered. I know what Richardson does.
Well, we both attended the meeting, not in person, but visited. And, what he just told me, he's very interested in it, whatever. The meeting, I'll sum it up for you, is the biggest part of it was passing their annual budget. And that's been an issue now for months. And they're still working hard on finding more funding, because of cuts in the state, but they're still moving forward. Regional broadband, you'll learn a lot more about that, but they have put up a lot of money in getting the fiber network put through. And Region 10 is playing a massive role in tying different communities and different counties together. Our trunk line that made it to Lake City, that kind of stuff. They're the ones that work with Visionary. And the other thing is the small business, the loan fund is very busy.
Has great rates.
Yep, we passed our audit on that, and there's more and more people that are applying for loans and getting training. I don't know if you're aware of it, but they put in basically a food training place down in Delta. And
Wow.
It's like a commercial kitchen where people that want to go to the restaurant business can go in there and get free training on how to do that, writing business plans and all that. So it's just a great organization, but I'm very happy you're going to be participating in that. And then they always wrap up the meeting where people can give reports on, you know, what's going on in their community. So I stepped in and just had, thank them very much for their participation through DOLA with the town park, and that has been completed, and how nice it turned out. And we appreciate that. And,
That's 12,000
Yeah.
development waste.
I gave a report on our, the wastewater treatment plant project, how we got pushed back a little bit, but we're dealing with some, you know, supply chains. It's hard to get anything done here. We're all praying for no fires. And, so that was it. And then we're working on a nice celebration for the Colorado 150th August. And I appreciate you being there. You'll get that. All right. Anybody have questions on anything? Okay, next, Planning and Zoning Commission.
I mean, there was just the discussion about the review of the fence over there at Alpine Loop. I frankly, I forgot what else we talked about that night. Dave, you were there too. I don't remember. I'm gonna try to get planning and zoning to actually give us a report for it instead of me reporting.
Right.
Because I don't even have to attend to do, but I'll get them to do reports.
Well, we had discussion on the 10K thing.
No, the 10K. Thank you.
The show.
Yes. Yes, that's correct. 10K.
Okay, next is Town Manager, Mr. Mulhall's report.
Yes, you'll have my report. So it's late. Y'all have my report. I'm probably gonna take the next couple of days off. Y'all have any questions?
I just wanted to throw out a huge thank you to town staff on the town
yeah.
cleanup weekend. And I've been getting a lot of positive feedback on that. I think it's something that has been long overdue. And I think all in all, it will be a better looking town for it. And Lexi, if you want to share this in your report, but the response was huge. The amount of
I think it's
things that were collected.
three 30-year roll-offs and 2 semis that we filled.
Oh my
And I got
God.
to see if that final semi today filled it, or if they got rid of it.
I think we paid for it, didn't we?
I don't know. And really, I don't know. The bill's gonna be higher than anticipated, but I don't know yet.
Okay,
Yeah,
but at least there was a lot.
there was a lot of steel,
People were losing their minds. They were so grateful for this opportunity.
Yeah.
So, yay to us.
I know,
Yeah.
that's awesome.
It was
It was Lex's idea.
Well, and a huge thank you to the,
It was a team effort for sure. I mean, she was the one that talked to him and found out that he could do it, and I was like, oh yeah. So no, it was a team effort for sure.
Oh, awesome.
and we have a junk ordinance that nobody's addressed in 40 years.
Exactly.
Very proud of you for that, but also thank you very much, because these guys worked their tails off. You know, Willie was out there,
Yeah,
you know, and these were volunteers that did that, and that's,
yeah, that's amazing.
I
That's
think it's
great.
awesome, and thank you very much, and we have another one coming up in August, maybe we'll get the town even a little, more clean, and I'm happy to hear so many people are on board with it. Anybody have anything for Lex?
Lex, are you gonna discuss the expenditures versus?
No, I mean, I threw that in there. There's nothing that is, I mean, so far we're on budget. So the expenses.
Yeah, it looks good, I thought.
In terms of expenses, yeah. So, no, I put that in there for the public's review and for y'all's review. If you have questions on it, let me know.
I looked it over, and it looks like you're right on track.
Yeah, I mean, our revenues are not, but our expenses are, so.
But we're coming into
The big season.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, next is town engineer report. I saw your report, Joanne, online. Thank you very much for the visual, the
Visualization.
photos that make it a lot easier to tell what's going on.
Yep. Making some good progress. Might be worth doing another site visit if you guys want.
Probably be a couple weeks. We got CML next week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They've got most of the piping in. And their groundwater went down, came up, and it's now going down again, and they'll get back to working on shaping the ponds.
And that sludge is drying out. I thought you had a.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a good picture.
It looks, there was one really soupy area when they started last week, but most of it is dry enough. John needs to get the tractor back up to the farm because we only have 24 hours from when it leaves the plant till it gets tilled in. And so the tractor needs to be there as the dump truck arrives, pretty much.
Okay, well, I've been doing my weekly drive-by and I see a lot of activity. We all know we cannot wait till that one's finished.
Yes.
We have a few projects that have gone on longer than anticipated, but people are working hard on. So thank you very much.
Yeah, they got the sheetrock up today.
All right.
Installation. I mean, yeah, how many years has it been?
Yeah, I know. Finally.
Yeah, they're not gonna tape it till next week.
Oh my God.
There's a lesson in everything. I know more now about wastewater treatment facilities.
And you
than I
ever
ever
wanted
expressed to that I would.
Are you upstairs in the apartment now?
Yes,
And you're comfortable?
reasonably, yeah. But sometimes the wind blows better than others, but yeah.
It's hot. It's hot up
I bet it is.
there. Yeah, and that was something I mentioned in the report too, but we'll talk about it later. We need to address the windows on the south facing side. They're rotting.
Let's buy one of those portable air conditioner things.
That's what I was thinking too.
Yeah.
If it became. Find one
I
that-
got me some screens so that with the two windows that move
Yeah,
are now screened,
okay.
so.
Yeah, we're looking into possibly your window air conditioning it. We're
actually-
we're already over budget, so it's like,
Yeah.
They
we might need to wait till next.
I'm
They
okay.
make those
Here.
freestanding ones, Lex, that you can get at Costco, Sam's Club, whatever, and you just have to bend them out.
I know, I have one.
They're easy.
Yeah, it's just, we're several $1,000s over budget.
Yeah,
So,
I'm fine. It's working, and it's, a couple of more weeks, it'll start getting cooler at night.
yeah.
I'll cool it at night, and lock it up during the day.
I'm just miserable when you're trying to sleep like that.
I'm doing okay.
I'm glad you guys did a great job getting that thing pulled together in time because we're.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think that's good. We'll do what we can. to
There's
make it
more
more
to be
comfortable.
done, but there's enough space for me. And for now, it's fine.
Yeah,
Okay.
we're 95% done, just put it that way.
Okay.
There's a little lingering things that we just ran out of time.
Okay. All right, so that's good news.
Landon, last meeting you asked about dirt. Do you have some dirt?
So you need more dirt.
Yes.
They do.
How many yards of dirt?
They'll take whatever you have, I think. They don't need, we're not in the thousands anymore.
Hundreds.
Yeah.
7. Okay.
Did
Yeah.
John call you? I gave you.
Yeah, I've talked to him before, but I can figure something out. Maybe if I can be of help, but it's
Okay.
based on due projects that I have.
Okay,
Then they could use it sooner than later.
yeah. They've only got another couple of feet to go, and as we go up, they get smaller,
Totally.
so.
But
But,
yes,
okay.
I'll figure
It
it out.
occurred to me after you said, when I walked out of the meeting, I should have asked why he asked.
Fair enough.
Thank you, John. We appreciate that.
Yeah.
Do you have any other questions for Joy?
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay, our next item is legal update. Dan, Rob, you have any update
Thanks.
for us?
No, I just wanted to thank Lex and Christina for really stepping up. They've been carrying a lot of the load lately, so I appreciate them. And then I hope to see whoever's at CML and tax officer carry me. Sorry.
What'd you say? You okay?
Cat is attacking.
It's cat.
Office security is saving my life from a break-in. So sorry about that.
Any trustees have any questions for Dan?
No, thank you.
One thing I'd like, Dan and I are gonna hopefully have some emergency ordinances to make our, regulations mirror the counties. Hopefully by the next meeting, also hopefully a draft IGA too, so that we can get that wrapped up here soon.
Well,
Yes.
Thanks, Lex. I meant to mention that.
Then we're getting close, we just got county.
Yeah, they're done changing their stuff. So now it's our turn.
Well, we need an emergency meeting.
Okay. Well, and it may,
We're gonna be at CML next.
I know, and it may have, we may need to do a special meeting just because the timing of the conference and the time, you know, the staff and Dan probably not gonna have time to do all that.
Okay.
It's okay. Definitely.
Next is mayor trustee reports. Any trustees have anything they'd like to report? Trustee Woods?
So we're still trying to raise money for our Indian dance. And so if it's all right, I'll send a fundraising poster to Lex and he can forward it to all the trustees and maybe you could spread it around to people if you would, please.
put it on Facebook.
And so I saw you booked a room for Thursday night, but there's nothing going on Friday.
It's Monday through Thursday.
Yeah.
We all should be checking out for Thursday, out Thursday.
What's that?
We should all be checking out Thursday and no one leave after this meeting. I have paperwork to give you that you need to, it's in your stack of stuff. Never mind. I'm so tired.
Okay, I thought it was.
Yeah, check out Thursday at noon. Yeah.
Oh, it did?
Yeah.
Yeah, Henry, the whole thing got moved. We used to go Tuesday to Friday, and now that's totally starting on Monday and ending on Thursday.
I see. All right. I wondered. Thank you.
Okay, any other trustees have anything to report?
No.
Yeah, I don't really have anything maybe to report other than looking forward to CML. It's always a good experience. Time to spend time with Dola and Dan and learn something and do what we can to represent the town.
One thing, when y'all check into your rooms, there's give them the affidavit of sales tax and the copy of the credit card and my ID. And that should appease them in terms of giving you the tax info.
Okay.
And whenever I get there, I can work out any problems, if there is any. Sometimes there is, sometimes there's not. So.
Okay. All right. Hearing nothing else, next item is correspondence received. Ted Powell, Sheriff IGA pass. I saw that letter. Did you want to address us?
Well, I think if you all read the letter, you see it's, the situation, it was a minor situation as it turned out, but it escalated very easily with my granddaughter. And when we called the sheriff, that's what we would expect to do to deal with this situation, when I was told that there was nothing officially he could do because the IGA wasn't signed, because I wasn't aware of that. I'm a part-time resident. So
Right.
I was quite alarmed about that, and I met with Lex later that morning. And apparently, then I looked online, and this has been going on, all year. We're coming up on the end of June. And so when you read it, you see the comments, you realize that, well, there's the ordinance issue in the town having different from the county. There's monies issues, like, for instance, the sheriff is asking for a special compensation for when you have like the wine festival, because they need to do their due diligence. And I guess the insurance is leading to the problem of why you need to do these emergency ordinance alignments. And then, of course, you read in it, it says that any party can opt to 90-day leaving, pending the IGA, and obviously it's taken, we're almost up to 6 months. But it's unacceptable. It's basic governance that when you call the sheriff, you don't get, well, I really can't do anything. Because that leaves the citizens to, for instance, in this case, there would be no police report, so it'd be a civil case. And then, it's one side saying, what's their interpretation of what happened? And, civil cases, lawsuits, it's very expensive. It's not the way, that's not the way justice is.
Well, I just want to share if Dan has anything to say, but this is something we've been working hard on. It was long overdue to get a new one. There was parts of the old one that didn't make sense. And this isn't an excuse, but what we're doing is tying county ordinances and town ordinances to make it easier and cleaner. And we all want police protection, and we should have police protection. But after being a citizen here for a very long time, I can tell you this, I've been told more than once by the sheriff's office, we're not dog catchers. Okay, well, now the county is updating their animal ordinances, and we're going to mirror that. But everybody here wants to get this thing done and get it behind us. I appreciate, you bringing that to our attention and taking the time to write that letter, but not of a lack of desire from us. I've stated in meetings before, my goal is to live long enough to get this IGA done. Trustee Bruce?
Mr. Powell, I want to apologize to you for the sheriff's office. I have said this out loud before, and I'm going to say it again. They have a duty to the citizenry. Okay, they are county law enforcement, post-certified police officers. The lack of an IGA, which is basically words and money, does not preclude the sheriff's office from their responsibilities, their obligations, or service to our citizens. Period. I went online. There is a state law that addresses aggressive dogs. Okay, if they don't want to enforce our ordinance because they don't have our dollars in their pocket, that's fine. But they have an obligation to serve you. And you're not privy to a lot of the details that have led up to where we are now. And it's really a boring story, but we don't have any control over the sheriff's office. We don't have any authority over them, and we don't have control of them. They're their own entity. And so, it actually addresses dogs that demonstrate tendencies that would cause a reasonable person to believe that the dog may inflict bodily or serious bodily injury upon a person or a domestic animal, actually. So that's a state law. They can do that. And why didn't they just go to find the owner of the dog and speak to them and ask them, just have a informal conversation with them if they didn't want to take any enforcement action? That's a scary situation. I am so sorry that you had to deal with that.
Okay. Any other comments? Thank you for being. Okay, we have no additions to the agenda, so we move on and get our action items. First one is discussion and possible action to proclaim August 1st, 2026 as Arbor Day in Lake City.
You can't do
I
it.
was listening.
So what activities will happen for Arbor Day?
All the activities that we're planning for the 150th celebration. So the youth are going to dance. We're going to plant some trees. Someone's going to dunk me in the dunk machine, whatever it's called.
Many girls and hot dogs.
And then burgers and hot dogs.
Plant new trees on August 1st.
Yeah, there'll be a violin playing in the background. It's going to be pretty awesome.
It
when we
will
plant
be
this
the
tree.
biggest Arbor Day Lake City has ever seen.
That's awesome.
Okay.
All right.
I would entertain a motion.
But he moved first.
A second.
We have a motion and a second. There's been enough discussion. Roll call vote, please.
Bruce. Yes. Lindsay. Yes. Sona.
Yes.
Winery.
Yes.
Woods.
No.
Beast.
Yes.
Roberts.
Yes, this year, and we should look at maybe we get it done earlier in the year. maybe tie it into the state has every day. But I say yes. Next item, discussion of possible action to approve San Juan Solstice request to close the intersection at Third Street and Silver Street for the San Juan Solstice race on June 20th.
Thank you.
Ha, ha.
Okay, listen, what is this?
I think I beat you.
Lex,
I,
It was Diane.
there was a horse race.
Diane,
I mean,
Trustee Bruce,
trustee Bruce.
seconded by trustee Lindsay.
Sure.
And Trustee Lindsay,
Okay, roll call vote, please.
Bruce.
Yes.
Lindsay,
Yes.
Trevisano,
Yes.
Winery,
Yes.
Woods,
Yes.
Weist,
Yes.
Roberts.
Yes. Discussion of possible action to approve resolution 2026-07, Packer Saloon and Cannibal Grill temporary encroachment license agreement.
So moved with the correction of customer seating area to read customer area.
yes.
Second.
Motion in a second. Any discussion? Roll call vote.
Bruce,
Yes.
Lindsay,
Yes.
Trevisano,
Yes.
Winery,
Yes.
Woods, Weist,
Yes.
Roberts.
Yes. Next, discussion and possible action to approve resolution 2026-08, submitting to the registered electors of the town of Lake City a ballot question to consider changing town of Lake City regular municipal election from April to November in even numbered years at the November 2026 general statewide election coordinated by Hinsdale County.
Second.
No, you got to read that.
Absolutely.
Second.
Fair. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Roll call vote.
Bruce.
Yes.
Lindsay,
Yes.
Trevisano,
Yes.
Winery,
Yes.
Woods,
Yes.
Weist,
Yes.
Roberts.
Yes. And finally, discussion of possible action to approve resolution 2026-09, submitting to the registered electors of the town of Lake City a ballot question to consider changing the number of trustees on the town of Lake City Board of Trustees should be reduced from 6 to 4 at the November 2026 general statewide election coordinated by Hinsdale County.
Second.
Motion and second, any discussion? Roll call vote.
Bruce,
Yes.
Lindsay,
No.
Trevisano,
Yes.
Winery,
Yes.
Woods,
No.
Weist,
Yes.
Roberts.
Yes. There was no other action before the board this evening. I adjourn this meeting. Thank you, everyone, for your time. I ended up with the ethics liability.